We had problems yesterday, so hopefully we'll not have a repeat.
Yeah.
Looking good. I'll let you know.
Okay.
And we're live.
Thank you. We have a quorum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, Representative Fockingham, you're here, right? And Representative Bloom.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, great. All right. Welcome to Marine Resources. We have before us today, we have a public hearing and a work session. So let's start with introductions. Senator Meermont. Oh, you're muted.
Now the space bar on mute's not working. So Dave Meermont, Senator for Senate District 12, Knox County. Thanks.
And I know Senator Meermont's going to be jumping from Zoom to Zoom today, so glad you're here. Representative Alley.
Yes, Representative Alley from down in Washington County, and I have 12 other communities here that I work with, and I'm in District 138. Thank you.
Representative Hepler.
Good morning. I'm Allison Hepler. I represent the towns of Aroustic, Georgetown, Phippsburg, Woolwich, which is where I live, Dresden, and a small part of Richmond. And I'm going to move my computer because I can't see anything because of the sun.
Got a great background, though. Senator Rosen.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'm Kimberly Rosen, Senate District 8. My district has 16 towns from Castine to Lincoln and Hancock County and Penobscot County. And I have the whole city of Brewer. I live in Bucksport.
So when we have our last meeting, maybe you'd list them all. Representative Hutchins.
Good morning. I'm Representative Hutchins. I represent District 131, with towns of Penobscot, Alden, Dedham, Otis, Roner Island, Stockton Springs, and Prospect.
Welcome. Representative Bloom.
Good morning. Welcome from the sunny south of Maine here. I'm sorry, my glasses are turning in the sun. I am Representative Lydia Bloom from York, House District 3.
Welcome. Representative Fockingham.
Good morning. I'm Representative Billy Bob Fockingham from Winter Harbor. I represent House District 136.
Welcome. And Senator Maxman.
Hi there, I'm Chloe Maxman. I represent Senate District 13, which is all of Lincoln County except for Dresden, West Washington, and Windsor.
Welcome. And I'm Jay McCrite, representing Harpswell, West Bath, and Northeast Brunswick in the House. And I'll be chairing the meeting today, at least while Senator Meermont is jumping from Zoom to Zoom. And I'd like to introduce our wonderful clerk, Linda LaCroix, and our wonderful analyst, Lynn Caswell, who keep us going in the right direction. So today we're going to start with a public hearing on LD 263. No, I'm sorry, 391. And I'm going to give us some background on our script for today. This is the Joint Standing Committee on Marine Resources. The purpose of the meeting today is to take to hear from the sponsor, to take public comments regarding the bill before us, and act to amend the laws regarding marine resources. And I'll fill in some background about that in a second. The meeting is currently being live streamed on the committee's YouTube channel. This means that anyone who's a participant in the meeting via Zoom can be seen and also heard if their microphone is unmuted. People on the Zoom meeting waiting to testify cannot be seen or heard until they're called upon to speak. This meeting will be recorded and available to view on the committee's YouTube channel soon after this meeting has concluded. And if you haven't done it, if you go to the website for any of the committees, you'll see that there's a link to the YouTube channel. It's over on the right side of the screen in blue lettering with some other wonderful links that you can check out. So does everybody have the name that they should have already on? Yes, looks like it.
Representative?
Yes.
Representative Stanley just joined also.
Oh, thank you. Let's introduce our new coming member. Representative Stanley, would you introduce yourself?
Good morning. I'm Representative Stanley. I represent the wonderful Katahdin area, the towns of Millmarket, East Millmarket, Medway, Patton, Long A Township, Long A, and Hersheytown Township. Thank you.
And Representative Crafts.
Good morning. I'm Lydia Crafts from House District 90. I represent Newcastle, Damascotta, Bristol, Bremen, Monhegan, and Louds Islands, and parts of Noblesboro and South Bristol.
Thank you. This reminds me to mention that members have multiple committees. Sometimes they are serving on multiple committees. Sometimes they're presenting bills or having work sessions. So people come and go. That's the way it is around the legislature. So just, we're getting later in the session, but this is still a new format, so there can be some glitches. And when you're called in to testify on the public hearing or in a work session, if you're called on to respond to questions, you'll enter what is sometimes called the wormhole. So just be patient and you'll soon be joining the meeting, but it's a little weird at the time. All questions, let's see, we'll hear about the bill. All questions will be made through the chair. We'll call on the sponsor, any co-sponsors, any legislators to testify first, and then we'll be calling people up in the order of in favor, opposed, and neither for nor against. Once you're done testifying, you'll be returned to the waiting room. You can still see and hear what's going on. Written testimony is submitted through the portal. If you have any problems with that, I'm sure our clerk will help you if you write to mar@legislature.maine.gov. Okay, so the first order of business today is a public hearing on LD 391, an act regarding laws regarding marine resources. And I just want to give a little background on this. In the previous session, the 129th, we had a bill, LD 28, which was a bill I presented about the lobster limited entry wait list. The bill was heard in a public hearing. We had, I think, about 40 pieces of testimony, some for, some against. We ultimately voted ought not to pass on that bill. Oh, I see a member has joined us. Representative McDonald, would you introduce yourself?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Representative Genevieve McDonald from House District 134, and I represent the offshore islands of Penobscot Bay and Western Frenchman's Bay.
Thank you. So we didn't pass that bill, the one from last session, LD 28, which you can look up if you go to the bill search. Go to the Maine legislature, maine.gov legislature bill search. You can look it up on the advanced search option, LD 28, if you want to see the bill and the testimony. We did decide to change it into a report back to the committee for the department to report back to us on the limited entry system, which was done. The department did report back to us. In the meantime, and we also had the option through that of reporting out a bill around that topic. Now, because we adjourned back in March, was it March 30th? We adjourned passing a budget that would take effect by the time we run into the next fiscal year. That meant that the 130th, the first year of the 130th was no more. We're now officially in special session. So that option of reporting out a bill was no longer with us because it was written to take effect during just the first year of the 130th, which is our current legislative session. So one of our members wanted to put forward an idea about the limited entry system. And the reason we're looking at it through LD 391 is that that was a concept draft. A concept draft is something that any sponsor can put in at the time of cloture, the last day to present a bill, so that it goes into the system. And it can be with no language to give the sponsor time to work on it, get it ready before it comes before the committee. And at that time, the sponsor would be presenting an amendment to the committee. A concept draft that never gets filled with language either needs to be carried over to the second year of the session or filled with something else or dies. So in this case, because we had a member interested in putting forward something around the limited entry system, this vehicle exists. It was one that was put in place in case the committee needed a vehicle, which is also something that is pretty much in every committee. We have vehicles we can use to make sure we can do the work we choose to do. Like any bill that we're going to hear, this is a public hearing. We'll hear from the sponsor of the amendment who presented a little bit on it on Tuesday, but we'll hopefully go into more detail today. And then we can ask questions of the sponsor, and we'll invite anyone who chooses to testify to come in to testify, just like any other bill. It's a little weird because it was originally a concept draft, but the process is the same. And then we'll hold a work session. I am suggesting unless we have a unanimous feeling about it, we don't rush it. We have time to think about it, and we have the work session on Tuesday because we're going to be here Tuesday anyway to hear from the department on some report backs that they need to give to the committee. So any questions at this point from anyone in the committee? Representative Bloom?
Yes, I'm curious about where the language is. I looked, to the public. How does the public see the language that we're discussing that's about to be presented?
Great question. It has been sent out to the committee and to the interested parties list. I don't know if it's online. Not online yet, but it will be after today, correct?
Yes, and it wasn't sent out to the interested parties list because there was some concern about it.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, clearly we have people who are here to testify, so.
Well, excuse me.
Lydia, Representative Bloom, sorry.
Thank you, Representative McCrate. I find this a little irregular that that we're having a public hearing and not even the interested parties have the language that we're about to hear. I find all of this a little irregular. I wanted to say that publicly. I don't think that this is helpful to the committee or to this very important subject to not have the details available for everyone to look at this point.
Well, I hear you. I did think it had gone out, but it hasn't. So let's proceed and we'll figure out what we need to do. Senator Meermont, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is it possible, Linda or Lynn, to post it right now? Please, can we have it posted right now and tell us where it is so everyone can look at it? We often change a whole bill in a sweep of an arm and nobody gets an idea about it. So there's nothing irregular about this. And we've done it anyway, so, but we'll at least get it up there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And our analyst will do that. Okay, I would like to turn over to Representative Fockingham. Would you take us through your amendment, your proposal?
Good morning, Madam Chair. I guess I'll start with just a little bit of point of clarification about what you said about LD 28. LD 28 did pass as amended. It was it didn't pass as the original bill, which was the original bill allowed anybody who'd been on the wait list for longer than 10 years to get a license. What ended up happening was that it passed as a report back. And so the report back happened and there was a public hearing. Everybody that was in committee was here for the report back. And I believe we had 2 work sessions on it since then. At the work session, that's when, of course, I was one of the people that voted for the bill in its original form last time. So I've always supported the bill. But I suggested some ideas that we could pass the bill. I suggested several different, versions that we could pass it as break the people up into different groups so they didn't all get absorbed all at once, and looked at the numbers and things of that nature. And then that's when I started working with Lynn on a amendment to one of those suggestions. And that suggestion that I had was to break the group up into 2 groups instead of 1 group, so they wouldn't get absorbed all at once. I've got the numbers in front of me. There's 34 people on there, so most of the zones have done a pretty good job of addressing that. The first time this wait list issue has been an issue for a long time. The first time the department did a report on this was in 2011. That was 10 years ago. At that time, the department recommended that the zones readdress their entry ratio because there were starting to be too many people on the wait list for long periods of time. Right now, there are currently some people in Zone G that have been on the wait list. That was.
You just broke up. Could you say that again? It's Zone G.
There are some people on the wait list in Zone G that have been on the wait list since 2007. That was 14 years ago. And it takes 2 to 3 years minimum to get on the wait list. So they have been working towards achieving a license for now 17 or 18 years. And when you get a license, you start off at 300 traps, which isn't really a number that is going to make you very profitable. So Zone A, B, and C have 0 people on the that have waited longer than 10 years. Wouldn't apply to them. D has 12. Zone E has 0. Zone F has 5. And Zone G has 17. So my proposal, as was discussed in public at the work session, at the report out, in a public hearing, live, was to break that group up into 2 groups and let some in 1 year and some in the next. So that's where that suggestion came from. And if I know I'm going to wait for Deirdre, and we're going to have a work session on this to find out just exactly how, this would all work. But I asked Deirdre how many people got into Zone D last year, and it was 5. And under this proposal, it would be 6. So it's not earth-shattering entry ratio. As a matter of fact, I honestly don't even know if this will change the amount of people getting in. I think that the ratios are probably, it seems like they're trending in a path where they're going to get in anyway, especially, in Zone D where they let in 5 last year. And if you just take the 12 and cut it in half, that would be 6. It wouldn't even significantly change their entry. It would only add one more person. So that's where that stands. I just wanted to clear up that LD 28 did pass. It was a report. This isn't a new thing or a new bill. This was just an idea that I had in the work session. That's what you do when you get a report back. You can report out a bill or you can not do anything. So that's what came out of the discussion. And that's where it came from. And if we hadn't adjourned, sign, die, this would be a potential committee report.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason why it isn't going through in that fashion is because we did adjourn, sign, die, and we're in a special session now. And there was another way that this bill could have came forward, but it was a little bit more burdensome. And Representative McCrate had a concept draft waiting for a situation like this, and that's why it was Representative McCrate originally anyway, LD 28. So I think it's very fitting that Representative McCrate carries the concept draft that this amendment can go into, and that's about all I've got to say about it.
Thank you, Representative. I just want to be specific. You've divided, your proposal is to split the wait list in half. If people who've been waiting 10 years or more, correct?
Yeah, that was my suggestion. Yeah.
Okay.
I had thrown out several ideas at the work session. I suggested doing it over 3 years. I suggested doing it over 1 year. I suggested doing it over 2 years. So
okay,
it's
great.
here nor there to me. I'm only one member of this committee.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for the clarification. You're right. The bill passed because we changed it into a report back. That's right. And that's what we heard from the department. Do we have questions? Oh, Representative Hepler, questions for the sponsor of the amendment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Representative Fockingham, so there's currently 28 who's been on more than 10 years, right? Is that?
So I thought it was 28 and it might be 28 currently, but the way this list that I have in front of me from Deirdre shows 34, which is actually the amount of people that will get on it before January. So there's some of these people have not waited 10 years yet. Just looking at the end of the list, December, November.
But they will as of the next time we.
Yeah, it looks like actually. It looks like as of right now, there's, hold on and I'll tell you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. It looks like there's 20 people on the list right now that have waited 10 years. And by the time this would go in, so the second half. So there's only 20 people on the list right now that have waited 10 years. I believe. Oh, wait a minute. 2011. Yeah, I think there's 20 or 21. That's what it looks like to me. But by the time
If I may interrupt, would it be helpful for me to share the list that Representative Fockingham is referring to?
Yeah, that would probably be better.
On the screen, I'll just share it for a few minutes.
Yeah, thanks.
So I don't know if it's small enough. But so there are 34. These are, I'm sorry to interrupt your conversation, Representative Fockingham. The top, it goes from oldest, waiting the longest to waiting the least. So that, and it shows you the zones that they're from.
Okay.
So I'm going to stop sharing because I'm thinking you want to keep talking, and I will be quiet.
Lynn, hang on just a second. Can you put
You
it
got
back?
two on it.
Yeah, there.
So what's important to figure out is how many are 10 years or more. And we're going by April 1 as the date that licenses, right? Is that right?
So the
Oh, it looks like, sorry if I'm
Okay,
still
You
on
only got
audio.
three groups.
So the only people on this list are people who have been waiting since December 30th of 2011. So more than 10 years. These are people who, as of January 1st of 2022, will have been waiting for more than 10 years.
Well, we're going to have to clarify because I think my understanding is we go by April 1st, but we can
Of
figure
this year or next year?
Well, April 1st is the turnover date, I believe, when licenses, people would come in. We can find that out.
Yeah, so if you're using April 1st of 2021, then there's 20 people.
Okay, so that's what Representative Fockingham was saying.
Yes, 20 people as of April 1st of this year, 35 people as of December 30th.
So then you can count and see how many from the zones G, D. So that would be nobody from F or the other zones that were mentioned. Okay.
Actually, I have a follow-up question,
Yes,
Madam
please.
Chair. And actually, it was more like, I guess it was a question for Representative Fockingham, and it had to do with the zone. So would there, if we divide it into 2 years, would it be so many people from each zone? Would it be representative? Or just based on how long they've been on the list, regardless of what zone?
So from my perspective on this, I want it to come from the committee. These were just my ideas, and I planned on fleshing all this out in a work session through a committee amendment. I was just throwing out ideas. It's not the reason why, we're not here today because I sponsored a bill and I'm invested in this. We're here today because we adjourned, sign, die, and that's
All right, well, thank you.
That's why, yeah.
Thanks.
You wanted to.
I've had some conversations with some people and some fishermen that have changed my opinions and given me some different ideas. And I've talked to Deirdre, and I've taken a look at the list, and I have some other thoughts that I'd kind of like to marinate in my head. And I always have ideas and things going on in my mind, and I'll bring those to the committee, but I'm just not really ready yet. And I'd love to hear what some of the other committee members had to say about it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's our process. Thank you, Representative. Representative Bloom and then Representative Valley.
Yes, thank you. Representative Fockingham, as you can see, it's Zone G, and I represent those lobstermen down here. Zone G would have 14 people in the phased approach. So just to clarify, what we did was we turned LD 28 into a resolve, whether we pass it or not, whether we agreed with it or not. We said we needed more information. So we got information from the department. They presented to us, and this bill is essentially the same bill that was previous before the resolve. So what information did you use from the report back to develop this list, to develop your bill?
Basically the fact that there were still people that had been waiting extremely long wait times. There's people on here that, as I've just described, have waited 17, 18 years to get entry into a state managed fishery. So that's where my opinion came from. It's just my opinion, and maybe the department plans on testifying today. So,
And
I'd
as
like
you
to
just
follow-
said, yeah, just a second. And as you just said, you're putting it out there. Let's hear what people think. Maybe there are other ideas too. Representative Bloom.
Yes, the next question is that as a lobsterman, you understand that the zones are very different. They have different topography, they have different populations, they have different needs. Zone G is a very special zone because it borders New Hampshire, and there are a lot of pressures on this zone that do not exist in other zones. And I feel like we need to be very careful when we talk about the zones and what it is. Do you agree with that? The zones have different qualities. Do you agree?
yeah, I understand that. And I had a good, 45-minute conversation with a fisherman from one of these zones the other day. And I think the way I said it to him is sometimes when I disagree with people, I just cannot wrap my head around where they're coming from. And for the discussion I had with him, I said, I completely understand you. I mean, I hear where you're coming from. I just think that at some point there's a wait that is too long to get into a fishery. And, I have the zone down there borders New Hampshire, but there's a zone down east that borders another country, Canada, and they don't have a problem with the wait lines. And the other thing I told that fisherman, and like I said, I'm going to let all these conversations marinate on where I'll end up. But growing up, when I grew up, I learned to fish from the old timers, and I'm one of probably the last generation or batch of people that didn't have to wait. I didn't have to go through apprenticeship. I just bought a license and started fishing. So it's really hard for me to endorse a process that doesn't allow people to have the same access and entry that I had. I feel like that would be selfish of me to do something like that. And also the thing that I always heard from the old time guys, the guys down to Beals, my great uncles, my grandfather, no matter what was happening, no matter what the issue was, they always said, you got to look out for the young fellas. You got to look out for the young guys. That's all they, can almost bring a tear to my eye, honestly, thinking about those guys, but that's all they cared about was the young people. And that's where I'm coming from on this.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Representative Alley, you had a question or a comment? Actually, they should be questions at this point.
Yes, I had a question for Billy Bob.
Yep.
Does it affect all zones? What the one that you're putting in now?
Depends on what you mean by affect. It would certainly apply to all zones, but some would be affected more than others, as Lydia pointed out. Zone G seems to have quite a backlog there. Now, if you cleared up that backlog, I don't know if it would affect them more moving forward or not. It seems like for whatever reason that they still have people on their wait list since 2007. I don't really know why that is. If they had a young group of fishermen and none of them have seen the industry, or if they're all going to start getting out at once. I don't really know that. I have the answer for that. Maybe the farm has more information on the ages or something like that could give you a little bit more insight into that.
I know that there is some people that's over 10 years that still doesn't have a license, and I just wondered if Zone A was working along with this group that you've got.
Yeah, Zone A currently doesn't have any people on that have waited longer than 10 years. Zone B doesn't, Zone C doesn't. And all those zones, really since LD 28 passed, all the zones reevaluated and took votes, and some of the zones changed their ratios. I know the zone I'm in changed the ratio to 3-1. That seemed to clear up the wait list, and so that's where it's at. There's only 3 zones that have people that have waited longer than 10 years right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Senator Miramont.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Had you heard about, in Zone Z particularly, that some of the folks that had been in the apprentice program but had tried to get some schooling and then rushed back to finish their program and missed the deadline? They've grown up working boats and they were still back doing stern on someone, but they had nowhere to move, and they're part of the people on this list. Had you heard about the zone response to them, and which was that they didn't really care as long as their kids could come in, and that's one of the issues that we dealt with as a committee, to extend it as long as they were going to school, they'd have that time to finish, because we saw how important that was, but the zones didn't. So have you seen that zones manage this so differently that it seems like this part maybe, is that why you thought it ought to be managed at the state level? And also the previous sponsor said that she did.
I don't know. I don't really know as I have a good answer for that. I know that the student program is a great program. I would never change the student program. And I know there are some people that I've gotten emails and stuff like that from people that just kind of messed up and didn't get their license when they were a student, and they really regret the mistake, and it's been tough for them not being able to get into the fishery, especially since their family has a long history of fishing, and they just didn't do the work when they were young. I know maturity is a factor for some people. For some people, it's their parents. This is something that really leans heavily on the parents doing the work and making sure the kid gets the apprenticeship license. It takes a very special young person to go through that type of paperwork themselves, and so there's different reasons and everything, and in the end, inevitably, the reason why I supported this bill was just because I think at some point after someone's done the apprenticeship work, because there's quite a bit of work involved in that. You have to find a licensed lobster fisherman to first of all allow you to apprentice, and then to log the hours, report them to warden, and that process takes 2 years at a minimum, and sometimes 3 to 4 years just to get started on the list. So I just feel like the state really should have in the beginning, and they shouldn't have waited for this problem to happen. The state should have had the foresight to address this ahead of time. But I just feel like after waiting a decade, I mean, you're really asking a young person to pass their prime in a career, that depends heavily on your physical ability, your back, and things of that nature. You're asking a person to pass their prime by waiting 17, 18 years before they can start out with a 300 trap license. So I just feel like the state plays a part in setting at least a maximum wait period. That's it.
Bill.
Representative Fockingham, you've referred to the 2011. Are you referring to the Gulf of Maine Research Institute study, or are you referring to something else?
I am pretty sure that it was a department the Department of Marine Resources where I read that study.
Okay, so maybe we could ask for the work session to have that and the Gulf of Maine.
So I'm not sure. Maybe
Okay.
it was, but I know that a study was done.
Yeah.
That far back.
Okay. Lynn, could you see about that? I know we referenced it when we talked about this before, and I think it was that study, but I could be wrong. Okay, Representative Bloom.
Oh, thank
You
you.
have a question?
I have a question about the history of the of what the wait list, what has happened to the wait list since 2011. And I think it's important that Lynn put together all of that history as well, please, for the work session. There's been a lot of work on the wait list. This is not the only thing that we've done in my 6 years here. We've done quite a bit. So I think it's important that we show what the progression has been on the wait list, what work has done so far, because it's not just what happened in 2011.
And you're referencing things like vetting the wait list so
Yeah.
that people were removed if they didn't want to be on it, or okay.
The wait list for transfers from one zone to another, which greatly affects the southern Maine zones as well.
Okay, great. And I see Lynn nodding. Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions for Representative Fockingham? Okay, let's move to the people here to testify. We have a list of people in favor. And first on the list is, well, let me call on the department. I'm not sure what position the department is in, but Deirdre, did you want to testify?
Yes, thank you, Representative McCreight. Let me just bring up my testimony. Good morning, Senator Marymount, Representative McCreight, and members of the Joint Standing Committee on Marine Resources. I am Deirdre Gilbert. I'm the Director of State Marine Policy at DMR, and the department is testifying in opposition to LD 391. As the department understands the discussions this session, the potential intent of this legislation is to modify the existing entry system for lobster licenses to provide that no individual will remain on a waiting list for a license for more than 10 years. Individuals who have been waiting 10 years or more at this time may be eligible to obtain a license this year or be phased in over multiple years until there are no individuals who have been waiting longer than 10 years. When this same concept was under consideration with LD 28, the department urged the committee to wait to learn the outcome of the federal whale rules before proceeding with any plan for expanded entry. As you heard earlier this session, the requirements that were outlined in the draft biological opinion, the BIOP, that was released this past winter were far more severe than any of us could have previously imagined. The conservation framework that has to be implemented over the next 10 years requires a 98% risk reduction for fixed gear fisheries by 2030, and as has been repeatedly referenced over the past several months, there is literally no way to achieve that level of risk reduction without a wholesale reinvention of the lobster fishery. And while no one can predict exactly what that will mean, it is sure to have drastic impacts on the current participants. The impact of allowing this additional entry under this criteria will fall entirely on zones D, F, and G. And depending on how that is calculated, it could allow as many as 34 new license holders total. And half of those, 17 of those, would be authorized for zone G alone. And while I do understand some of the frustration with the failure of these specific zones to liberalize their entry calculations, it is also important to bear in mind the different experiences over the past decade or so that these zones have had. Generally speaking, the biggest gains in landings have all been experienced in the eastern part of the state and much less so in the western zones, particularly in Zone G. And I've attached a chart of the landings since 2008 or so, which shows that Zone G has really not seen any sort of increase like the other zones have experienced. So to some degree, it is understandable why they have had a limited appetite to increase the pace of entry, as it just further divides a relatively small pie. The department's final concern over the proposed approach is that there is an apparent disconnect between having legislation that authorizes the zones to establish their own exit entry ratios, but then an action to overrule those decisions when the entry does not move fast enough. And while the zones were repeatedly told by the department that there was a concern about the long waiting lists, until LD 28, there was really never a clear goal established that they were expected to achieve. And by that, I mean, no one gave them a target of making sure that nobody should wait longer than 10 years. But if that is the agreed upon directive, this legislation could take a different approach, and it could require that any zones with waiting lists that do not meet that criteria be required to lower their ratios to something lower than what they currently have, or to 1-to-1 until that is achieved. Alternatively, it could require that any zones in this situation must use licenses instead of tags in their calculation until such time as no individual has been waiting that long. On that topic, I just wanted to add one other thing that has occurred to me as I've looked at the waiting lists over the past several days. Part of the reason that I think we have those large year classes in kind of the 2010, 2011 timeframe is that, you know, we had a lot more interest in getting licenses at that time. So we have large kind of cohorts for those years. If you look at the waiting lists now, you'll see we don't add that many people in more recent years. There are much smaller numbers in more recent years. And partially, I think that's a function of people understanding the reality of the waiting lists and deciding not to do the apprenticeship program. I think we do have a concern that if we established a fixed waiting time instead of an entry to exit calculation, it becomes much more attractive to people to say, well, yeah, if I do the program, then I just have to wait 10 years. There's a lot more certainty around that. It might increase interest in the program, or I think it will increase interest in the program. And I think that's a consequence of this approach that folks should think about. Other than that, thank you for your consideration. I'm happy to answer any questions. And obviously there's been a lot of conversation about things that people would like to have for the work session. We are happy to provide anything that would be helpful in that conversation.
I keep muting because my cat is screaming in the background. Deirdre, did you post your testimony?
I did.
Okay, great. And do you know about the 2011 report?
The only 2011 report I am aware of is the GMRI report, or that addressed entry is the GMRI report. And that was, the recommendations of that were referenced in our report back.
Okay, great. Thank you. Senator Mearmont has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Director Gilbert, for your testimony. And I hear it and I think, well, wow, that you have put in all these landmines that are happening to this industry, and very well. And you make it a great argument for not letting anybody else in right now. But that's not what you're really testifying about. You're saying, don't let this group in. You manage a resource for the state of Maine. Well, not you particularly, but a resource of the state of Maine is managed, and it's decided to let it be managed by zone councils. But if there was a zone council was doing something that the department thought wasn't right, then you would step in. So you're testifying that it has all these challenges, so we shouldn't be letting these 35 people in over the next 2 years. But we're going to continue to have students flow right into this with nothing stopping them. It doesn't say these people, if suddenly there was 50 of them this year, they could all go right in. So that argument's not working for me. Because it doesn't speak to Well, we're not trying to shut it off, and nobody wants to, as Representative Fockingham said. They want the student program. I want the student program to work. But why aren't you saying this, the way that the zone council is managing it is unfair to the rest of the people in Maine, other than the students of the folks that have licenses, and step in and do something about that, about a fairness part of it? Because I know you would if it was an issue that you and the commissioner felt needed to be changed. So that's where I can't wrap my head around your arguments. What do you say?
So I guess I would say two things. One is we don't have the authority to do anything about this. This is in law, so that if it's a fairness issue, that is a legislative authority. We have the authority to manage the resource. And I know it's been brought up several times that there is open entry for students as though that is overwhelming each year, but in reality, it is very commensurate with what comes off of the waiting list. We've shown that in the data that we've provided. There is not overwhelming student entry. Student entry is basically equivalent to what comes off of the waiting list. That was created at the outset of this program to ensure that people growing up on the coast of Maine had the opportunity to enter this fishery in a kind of, you know, in a logical manner, I guess. And so I think that is happening. I think the question is, do we continue to use a calculation to figure out how many people to let in, or do we just set an arbitrary deadline for how long people have to wait? And those are two very different things. So if the desire is to just set a deadline, I guess all I'm trying to say is I think that's a much more attractive opportunity to people, because then they just know I just have to wait this long and then I'll get a license. But it's no longer a limited entry system because it has no relationship to who's leaving.
And a little follow-up, Madam Chair?
Yes.
Thank you. The numbers, you've made a great case for the students are not overwhelming. There's not lots of people coming in from it. It probably isn't a big one. I'm just saying, if it was the case, that could happen. What I'm saying, it's overwhelming fairness. And you make the point that it's up to us to fix it, not you. So I appreciate that. And there was a question there. I lost it, sorry.
Okay, Representative Bloom.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Gilbert, you raised again and you know, with justification, the BIOP. I would think that this is a good time for us to get a very brief summary of where that BIOP is in terms of its, you know, where are we at? Is it destined? Is it done? Or do we have an opportunity to appeal it? What's happening there? I guess.
Sure. My understanding is the BIOP needs to be finalized by the end of this month. So by May 31st, we will know the final outcome of the BIOP. Obviously, folks had the opportunity to submit comments on that earlier this winter. Beyond that, I'm not prepared to speak on where we go from here. Obviously, this is the primary concern of the commissioners. The impact of the federal whale rules on this fishery is his primary concern with regard to this legislation. He will be at the work session, and I'm sure he would be happy to speak to that.
And the BIOP is different from what was the other part? You got the BIOP part and you got the other part, right?
The rules themselves that will be implemented.
But it's the BIOP that is the real concern, because that's what's going to really have to upend the fishery management if it goes in as planned.
The BIOP is what requires the level of risk reduction that people have been talking about, as again, a 98% risk reduction over 10 years. And what that would mean, how could you achieve that in this fishery? And basically, again, it's not possible under the fishery that we currently have.
And may I just follow up once?
Sure.
And so we don't know what the final BIOP is going to look like until May 31st. Is that correct?
I believe that is correct.
So there's still a chance for some change. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Crafts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I would defer to Representative Hepler, who raised her hand first.
Okay, Representative Hepler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Deirdre, what was the original intent of having of waiting lists and of and slowing down the entry?
Thank you, Representative Hepler. I would say that that was just a way to kind of moderate the effort in this fishery through the number of licenses. This goes back quite a ways, obviously. And the only kind of metric that I can think of that would indicate what people had in mind in the original regulation that provided for the entry-exit ratios, there was another provision that basically said, if any zone got to a 30% reduction from their 1997 level of licenses, then at that point, they would go to 1-to-1 for their entry to exit calculation. So again, I'm trying to recall kind of what folks thought about the status of the resource at that time. I think probably people thought we were, based on the biological information, we might be headed into a period of time where we needed to reduce effort in the fishery. So they were prepared to see it reduced to that level and then kind of stabilized. Obviously, that's not what happened with the lobster resource. We kind of started on an upward trajectory following that. But I think its original construct was just to kind of moderate the amount of effort in the lobster fishery. And again, the other thing that would have been happening at the time is with the establishment of trap limits, people didn't want to see people who were using higher levels of traps being asked to bring those traps down, get overwhelmed by new entries. So you're just kind of taking away traps from one person and giving them to another person. So the idea of limiting licenses would mitigate that a little bit.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Representative Crafts.
Thank you. Deirdre, just to follow up on that. So if the resource protection, as far as how the lobster take or the success of the species was surviving, if that's no longer the issue, would there be a problem or conflict if the suggested amendment took care of the immediate project? Because when we talk about rational management, I think being on a wait list since 2007 seems fairly irrational. It seems like a long time. Could we not pair a requirement that zones make some changes moving forward with this initial solution for the 20 individuals who've been on the wait list for so long? What would the consequences of that be?
Thank you, Representative Crafts. I think you could, and again, in just the space of the past week, talking to people about this, what has been clear to me is that I think part of the challenge is that there hasn't been a clear explanation of what is the expectation of the legislature in terms of what are we trying to get them to achieve. In my estimation, what they have been told is they're too long and they don't move fast enough. But how fast do you want them to move? How short do you want them to be? Like you have to provide some actual parameters around that to get people to be able to figure out how it should be addressed. With regard to the status of the resource, I mean, again, there's so much latent effort in this fishery that licenses are not at this time the mechanism that we are using to manage the take of lobsters. There's, again, in that report back, there's so many licenses that aren't being used. That's not really an effective tool for us to limit take.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Meermont.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I had an email saying one of the interested parties, they want to comment, but they don't have the language. So is it posted somewhere that we can direct them to, Lynn, please, an address that we can direct them to? And I think they're watching, so we could also put it in the chat, but if you could tell us what it is too. Thank you.
Yes, and I will say that I'm going to look it up right this minute. And would you like me to read it aloud, what the address is, and or attach it?
Yes.
Okay.
That's
So,
okay. Here.
Yes, and I will say that Linda did send the material out to the interested parties listserv, and she just did that a little bit ago. And so they may actually have it in their email box. The email address to see the materials that are posted, and I'm struggling here, and I will copy and paste it into the link, but it's mainelegislature.org/committee. And then if they open the link to the marine resources, they will see materials.
And they go to this number, is that correct? Go to LD 391?
Yes.
Okay. And can you post the link in the chat as well?
Yeah, I'm going to do that right now. And maybe I will have it somehow, I'll work with Linda behind the scenes to see if she can make it part of her screen or somehow make it visible to people as well.
Thanks. Representative Bloom, a question for the department?
Please, thank you. Ms. Gilbert, what if you could just please clarify what take means and what effort means, and how are you measuring effort? And I understand there are some new tools that are going into measuring effort in the fishery.
Thank you, Representative Bloom. So I guess we would usually consider to be the landings, like what are the actual landings from the fishery. There's been an ongoing debate about what's the right metric for effort. Is it licenses or is it traps? And obviously different zones have kind of viewed that differently and wanted to use a different currency in terms of managing their effort. I'm not sure I know what you're referring to with new tools to manage effort. I don't know if you're thinking of the mandatory reporting for the fishery. Obviously, through the ASMFC process, that is coming within the next couple of years for the lobster fishery. We will have 100% reporting that we don't currently have, and that will give us a better idea of the relationship between the existing licenses, the traps that are actually getting fished, and the landings. I don't know if there's something else that you're thinking of.
Yes, so that's really important though, because we at this point you have to estimate effort, and you don't really have a good tool to do that, but you will have a better tool going forward.
We derive some information. We have 10% harvester reporting. We do have 100% dealer reporting as regards the landings, but the dealer data doesn't provide any effort information. The harvester reporting provides the effort information that we extrapolate beyond the harvesters who report.
And you can do that by zone.
We do that by zone.
Thank you.
Representative McDonald.
Thank you. So just with some quick math, if we let in 20 licenses, that's a potential 6,000 traps. Does the department have a sense of how many latent tags are out there?
We have from the report back, we can tell you of the licenses that are not used at all, what the latency is. So if somebody has no landings through any dealer, those are kind of truly latent tags. But there are also situations where people buy more tags than they use, and we don't have a way of giving a good estimate of that. If you're buying 800 and you're fishing 400, we don't necessarily have the right data to capture that information. But the truly latent tags are in the report back from LD 28.
Okay, thank you. And can we have that for the work session? I don't have that paperwork anymore.
Sure.
Deirdre, just following up on that, would, when you have 100%, is that going to tell you any more, or will that, or not?
Well, definitely, I think we wouldn't be looking for that information if we didn't think it would tell us more. We will certainly, I think, have a much finer scale understanding of the fishery when we have 100% harvester reporting.
Okay. Okay, great, thanks. Okay, any other questions for the department? Seeing none. Okay, let's go to, assuming we have, Jack Merrill is next on the list. Mr. Merrill, if you're with us.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, is that, are these people in favor?
Yes.
He's on his way in, Representative. He's
Thank you.
in now.
I'm trying to unmute. It's unmuted.
Am I unmuted?
Yes,
Can you hear me? Thank you.
we can't see you, but we can hear you, and that's okay.
Let me get the video. Yeah, that's fine. Fine with me too. Representative McCray and Senator Miramont and members of the Marine Resources Committee, thank you for letting me speak today. My name is Jack Merrill. I'm the longest serving director of the Maine Lobstermen's Association, including many years as vice president. I've also been on the board of advisors to the Lobster Institute at the University of Maine since its inception. And I've served numerous times on the board of the Cranberry Isles Fishermen's Co-op. I don't speak today for any organization. These are my own thoughts. I've submitted more detailed written testimony on this bill over the last 2 years. In one, I tried to give the committee a look at the history of limited entry and the wait lists in our fishery. In the other, I tried to give an overview of where we are now and what we failed to anticipate when the wait lists were incorporated. No one anticipated that anyone would have to wait more than a couple of years to get a license. It takes 2 or 3 years of hard work on the stern of a boat just to get on the list in the first place. The fact that there is no time certain that a license will be issued is a killer. There is no other business, professional or unprofessional, in this state that would make you wait 10 years or more after you qualify to be allowed to practice your chosen profession. Young men and women who have made a conscious, difficult decision that they want to try and go of it on the water are being held in limbo. Remember also, you cannot get on the waiting list without the approval of a licensed captain. Licensed fishermen have complete, total control over who enters the fishery. Even if this bill passes, as far as I can tell, there's still no job in the state of Maine that would require a longer waiting period. That includes electricians, plumbers, real estate agents, bank tellers, bankers, lawyers, even surgeons who can get work in less time. People on the list have made a career choice. A 10-year limit or date certain allows them to plan their lives. Financing a lobster business takes planning, and nowadays it isn't cheap. How frustrating is it to have met all their qualifications and have to wait an undetermined amount of time, in some cases possibly until after their own children get licenses? Quite frankly, it's not right. I fought all my adult life to make this fishery better. It is better, but the current waitlist situation puts a strain on our industry that needs to be cleaned up. A lost generation of fishermen need that opportunity. They worked hard for other people. They know the business. To get on the list, a licensed captain has already said, this person will be a good steward, a person to fish alongside. Because they get their license, it doesn't guarantee success. It's a backbreaking business. It takes capital, it takes determination, a strong body, and a strong mind. Finally, it's important to remember this is a public resource. Licensed fishermen in their respective zones still determine entry. They have complete control, since no one can qualify for a list without their signatures. Please give these people a chance they deserve. 12 years is more than long enough to have to wait for their opportunity to realize their dreams. The impact on the industry is negligible, but the impact on the lives of these individuals who've already waited for 12 years would be extremely significant. And to wrap up, I'd like to point out
that today the number of licenses issued is about half of what it was when I entered the fishery. The strength of the fishery is in the number of peoples it employs. If we want to continue to have a voice in this state, we need an influx of young people. And I'd ask new members of the committee, I'm not sure if the written testimony that I submitted on LD 28 is still available to you, the committee. I hope it is. If it's not, let me know. I will resubmit that. It does give quite a history of why we're here today in this situation. So thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I'll be very happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thanks, Mr. Merrill. Yes, we can ask the analyst to pull up your testimony from LD 28. It is still online.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for your testimony. Any questions for Mr. Merrill? Seeing none. Thank you for being here.
All right. Thank you.
So we're going to move to people who are opposed. And first on the list is Chris McIntyre. Welcome.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, and see you.
All right. Representative McCreight, Senator Miramont, and distinguished members of the Marine Resources Committee. I didn't have a lot of time to prepare anything for today, so this is going to be kind of choppy. You'll have to bear with me. I'm here today to testify in opposition of LD 391. I'd like to start by saying that there's been a lot of defense of how you guys have moved forward with this. As of yesterday, when I had conversations with representatives of the Department of Marine Resources, it seemed that I had a better understanding of what you guys were trying to do than they still did. So the fact that, I just found out about what you guys were doing 2 days ago, and that as of this morning, if you still clicked on the link for 391 on the public hearing for today, there's no language associated with the bill, is disturbing to me. I think it's an issue that certainly deserves, conversations to be had around it and solutions to be sought. But the fact that we're having a public hearing today on language that was still not available to the public is disturbing to me. Any solution to the wait list problem, the problem of long waits, needs to live within the realities of fisheries management. And the realities of fisheries management are that you have to have a tool in place in order to control effort within the fishery. The proposed legislation would essentially create an open fishery with a wait list time deadline of 10 years. There would be no tool for the state or individual zones to have any control over effort. That would put the fisheries reputation as a sustainable fishery at jeopardy. You can't have we just saw this recently with the Jonah crab fishery, where they had to put management tools in place in order for the fishery to be considered sustainable. You can't create an open fishery and call it sustainable. I also have concerns about the effects that it will have on pending whale regulations, as we are being asked to reduce our risk to right whales. And I think it sends a dangerous signal from the state to say that we're going to increase effort in the fishery at the same time as we're being asked to decrease risk. And it will put more pressure on current fishermen to have to reduce risk further in order to make up for new people coming into the fishery. I understand the argument that it's a public resource, that it's a resource managed by the state, but there are lots of resources that are managed by the state, lots of other fisheries, including the scallop fishery, the Elver fishery. And that argument just doesn't fly in the face of fisheries management, that you shouldn't have to wait any longer than 10 years to get a license. where's my scallop license? Where's my Elver license? I don't get opportunities to get on a wait list and then one day get them. I'd have to put in for a lottery and maybe never get one. If I knew that I could put my name on a wait list to get a scallop license and I'd automatically get it in 10 years, I'd go put my name on it tomorrow. And so would 50 other people that live around me. I believe that there are solutions to this problem, as Representative Fockingham pointed out. Lowering the exit ratio in zones have essentially fixed their problems, and I believe that incentives, like the Department of Resource pointed out, incentivizing zones to lower the exit ratio in order to meet a target created by you guys would be an effective way of meeting these goals while still maintaining a limited entry fishery that is considered managed and sustainable, and still allow zones to have some say in the amount of effort in their fishery. The fact that this bill would only have an effect in 3 out of the 7 zones, I think speaks for itself in that it's just way too broad and oversweeping, that it's not targeted enough. You're talking about an issue that's really only in 2 zones. I mean, zone F, you're talking 5 people that would get their license. Well, we issue 4 to 5 licenses generally a year anyway. So you're talking about a very localized issue and a very broad reach, with consequences that can't even be seen right now. If you look at zone A, doesn't have anybody that's been waiting on their list that long, but zone A actually has the longest waiting list of any zone in the state. They have 57 people on their waiting list. And so what would the future consequences be of this legislation to that zone? If all of a sudden you just had huge waves. I mean, you look at zone A's waiting list is tons of people from 2016, 2017, 18, 19. And you could be talking about huge amounts of people coming in at once, and who knows what the realities of the fishery are going to be at that point. It just doesn't take any of that into account. I think that moving to essentially an open fishery, I mean, there's been some discussion about, in the past and what led to the system that we have now.
Well, Mr. McIntyre, I'm sorry, my clock's working strangely, but I know it's been more than 3 minutes, so if you could wrap it up, it'd be great. Thanks.
All right, thank you. I just, at the end of the day, I think that the fact that this is the result of 2 years of discussion shows a severe lack of due diligence. There's got to be a better solution than simply putting forward the same bill again in very minimal change. I heard on Tuesday Senator Miramont call this a very good compromise, and it's not a compromise at all. So Senator Miramont, thank you for your time, and the other representatives. Have a good one.
Chris, I see some questions. Can you hang on?
Yep. Sorry. Hold on. I'll pull my video back up.
Okay. And Chris, I think you submitted testimony last year as well. Would you like?
I don't know that I did, to be honest. I mean, when you first put forward LD 28, you came down and sat at my dining room table with me and my father, and we discussed it. And I felt like by the end of that conversation, you were, and I understand the intention of the bill, and I believe that it is something that should be discussed and that we should find a solution that works for everybody. But I believe by the end of our conversation that you were kind of like, oh, maybe this isn't a great time to be, in the face of pending whale regulations and at the time a looming bait crisis. And I think there's work still to be done to find a proper solution to this issue. And this little 2-day at the end of the session thing, or, at the end of, you guys are supposed to, report out. It didn't provide enough time for the public to weigh in on the issue and to have a real conversation about it. And I look forward to in the future.
Okay, great. And we have some options around that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. And don't go away yet. Representative Bloom.
Thank you. Mr. McIntyre, I missed where you're from.
I live on Orr's Island in Harpswell, and I represent District 7 in Zone F on the Lobster Management Council.
So in Zone F, do you see a way of influencing the zone? I mean, what we need to try to do is to try to reduce this waiting time. I agree with that. But I think that, as you have pointed out so eloquently, and frankly, thank you for your very eloquent and hit a lot of points that I've been saying as well. And is there anything that would pressure Zone F to change their entry so it would be a little faster?
Well, I think DMR mentioned, like if that's your target is a 10-year wait, then, I don't know exactly how it would go about it, but, forcing the zone to lower their exit ratio until that target was met, type of thing. Personally, my own opinion, not as a representative of other fishermen in the area, I believe that Zone F should go from a 5-to-1 to a 3-to-1 exit ratio. I don't think that we do ourselves any favors by whittling down our fishery any more than we were told we had to start with. This is not a system that was put in place by fishermen. It was put in place by the state because the state had been told by the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission that we were overfishing, and that we had to rein in the amount of traps in the water. And this was the solution. And I mean, the system works to a degree. People get their licenses. As the department pointed out, there's a pretty much equal between, people coming in from the student program and people coming in from the wait list. I just hate to see, this solution to this big, broad, sweeping solution with future ramifications to a very small, localized problem. So,
yes, thank you.
Thanks. Representative Hepler.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks, Chris, for coming in today. So you mentioned incentivizing zones to change their entry-exit ratio. Do you have some ideas about how to do that?
Well, I think if you guys set forth that if a individual zone had people on the wait list that have been on there for more than 10 years, then they had to lower their exit ratio to say 3-to-1. I mean, I think Billy Bob said that 3-to-1 has worked well for their zone in kind of clearing the backlog. I think that would be an appropriate number, personally. Yeah, I mean, there is still this issue of, I mean, it's why that there's a reason why each individual zone has the control that it does. And that's because the differences are just mind blowing in that there were probably, there are more people that live in the southern part of the state. There are more latent licenses to begin with. And so when licenses were being retired, there were more licenses that were being retired that hadn't been being used to the full extent, and then were given to people that did use them to the full extent. There's a lot of differences in who's on the wait list, why they're on the wait list, how many people live in the area, how many latent licenses there are in the area. And so I think that finding a way to maintain that local control while still providing some relief. But it's hard for me I mean, that might make sense in my zone, but then I can't say, I can't necessarily say that that would make sense for G, because I mean, you're asking one zone which is, I don't know if they have the lowest landings in the state or maybe the second lowest landings in the state to absorb all of this new entry. I mean, give them a license in zone B. If Billy Bob wants to fish around them, then he can fish around them, so I'm sure they'd love to move down there. It's where all the lobsters are anyway.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Great, thank you. So the importance of the local issue and the importance of, what they're incentivizing versus a broad solution that may not fit.
I mean, that's just one suggestion that I've come up with over the last 36 hours, because I hadn't really, I'd thought about this off and on since you originally put LD 28 in. And I've had conversations with other fishermen about lowering the exit ratio. And I still hear all the time that guys feel like there's more new traps popping up around them than there are old traps going away. And I know that it's an issue that in no way unites fishermen. Everybody has a different idea about it. And I think that we should maybe have more conversations in a more transparent way.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Okay, no more questions. Let's go to Dustin Delano. I see Dustin's in the room. Welcome. We see, there you are.
Good morning.
Go ahead. When you're...
Representative McCray, Senator Miramont, distinguished members of the Marine Resources Committee. Thank you for listening to us this morning. I just want to start with the fact that I do sympathize with anybody that's on the wait list. I sympathize with the time they spend on there, because for over 10 years, I've wanted some participation in other fisheries. I've wanted to be able to, harvest some other marine species and to take advantage of that. So for well over 10 years, I would have loved to put my name on a wait list, and I can't, and just, the handful of fisheries that allow some entry, use the lottery system. And just maybe you guys can keep it in the back of your mind, but the lottery system is one of the worst ideas of managing fisheries. It's there's no equity at all. You can't watch progress. You could put in one day or 1 year, and you could get your license that year, where someone else might put in for 20 years. But maybe you can keep that in the back of your mind for the future. But I just kind of jotted a few things down here and there. Over the last several years, this committee has made lots of changes to the wait list. You have made it easier for students to get in. And I will say one thing, that the lobster industry has made that a major priority. We want young people, and we're one of the only fisheries with a student program. And I think that speaks volumes to where our ethics lay. And I think it's also important to realize that the amount of people that come off the wait list and the amount of kids that come in each year are pretty well equivalent. And I think it's also important to realize that if the amount of kids coming in was flooding the gates, we'd probably be here discussing that too, if it was the other way around. But I just want to touch on, on whales. It scares the crap out of me to think about what's coming, to think that our fate is in, a judge's hands, to think that, maybe the Marine Resources Committee decides that we should let in these extra 35 licenses, which would be at maximum capacity, 28,000 additional traps and end lines. Do you think that's not going to move a federal judge? I mean, that's scary. If that's the thing that sets him over the edge, I mean, we need to hold off here. And I think another important thing is wind development offshore, where we have some, some very big statements that have been put out there over the last year about goals for offshore wind, and they're going to displace everybody. And I don't know that there's going to be any coming back from it. And so if you're talking, the last day I hauled, every trap I hauled was either in the whale area for closures or the wind area. So I'm going to have to relocate too. And Billy Bob even mentioned himself that 300 traps is not very profitable. But when you look at some of these predictions, the buy-up wants us to reduce by 90% in 10 years. I think we all need to come to the conclusion that there's a good chance we'll be fishing 300 ourselves, all of us. So this just isn't the right time. And I think that we need to be careful about trumping the authority of zones. I think that the zones do a good job at managing where they are in each area. And I think that we need to be able to manage those according to zone. So I just think that, we really need to pay attention here. 28,000 additional end lines. This isn't the time to even be putting that out into the media and getting the attention of a judge that has our fate in his hands. So just please consider that.
You're on mute.
Thank you. You'll now hear my cat. I think your point about how the judge would respond is a point well taken. Dustin, remind us where you're from.
Friendship.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Questions for Mr. Delano? Representative Bloom?
Mr. Delano, what zone is that again?
Zone D.
Zone D.
where you're talking 12 of the 34.
Right. Do you have an idea of what would the zone respond to try to reduce their waiting times? Do you think that?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I think when you look at the list itself and you look at the years that people came on, according to the way we're moving, most of these people that you're talking about putting on are going to come into the fishery in the next year or two, if you just let the process play out. But I think some of the fear there is that every year when we're looking at some of the tags that go out of the fishery, and Zone D uses the tag currency because that is more accurate than licenses. But some of these people that go out of the fishery are people we've never heard of that actually weren't fishing to begin with, that hold latent licenses. So it's just, you have to realize that we are using a more restrictive thing because people that are exiting the fishery aren't people that were in the fishery necessarily all the time. So, that's why we're not 3-1, is because we have to allow for some of that that's going on.
Thank you.
I think I missed it. What's the ratio in Zone D?
I think it's 4,000 tags out.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you. I guess I won't comment, but I really appreciate your being here and your comments. Next, let's go to Jim Wotton from Friendship. And there you are. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You can see me and hear me already, I assume?
Yes, you're good to go.
Thank you. Senator Mearmont, Representative McCray, members of the council committee. My name's Jim Wotton. I'm a 6th-generation commercial fisherman from Friendship. I'm also vice chair of Zone D and president of the Friendship Lobster Co-op. I submitted my written testimony on LD 28 last night. I resubmitted it. Hopefully you'll have that in front of you. I urge you to read that. It goes into a little bit of detail about Zone D specifically and where we are right now and how we got where we are. I'm going to speak right now on behalf of Zone D because we did vote on LD 28, and this is essentially LD 28 rehash. Our view is this proposal undermines the zone's power and ability to manage themselves. Maine has 7 zones for a reason. One size doesn't fit all. Maine is a big state, and what's good for the western part might not necessarily be good for the eastern part of the state. That's the way it's designed to operate. It's working. Let it continue to work. The list is shrinking in western Maine. The list is shrinking in western Maine, and in a year or two, Zone D will be below the yet 10-year wait limit being proposed. There are more people coming off the list than going on. We just need to get over the hump, and we're nearing the top. We can see it. give it time. The last, yeah, I've got the Zone D waiting list in front of me. In 2010, there was 6 people on the list. There's 6 people on the list right now who went on to the zone list in 2010. In 2011, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Your proposal now is to put all 12 of those people in one way or another, whether it's half 1 year, all at once, whatever you come up with. What happens to our ratio right now? We've been putting, last year, this year, they got their licenses this year, 4 people. The year before that was 5 people. So we're talking 9 people in the last 2 years. You've got 12 in this proposal. You know, that's where we're at. Within, give or take, 2 or 3 people in 2 years, that's where we are. That's us. I see Mr. Representative Timer there. I got my point across, I think. The other guys before me, Dustin did, you know, he brought up some points. Chris brought up some points that I was going to make that are in my written testimony. It's working. We told you this a couple of years ago. Give it time. It's working. We're there. We're almost there. Let it finish. I'd like to discuss this list a little bit if somebody wanted to ask me about it.
Okay. You know the system, huh? Okay, thank you. Yeah, we have the numbers, certainly. We don't have the individuals. Does anybody have?
I've got the most recent Sarah updated it for me last night, you know, and if you look at in 2010, there's 6 people on the list. From 2011, there's 6 people on the list. In 2012, 1 person. 2013, 2 people. 2014, 2 people. 2015, 3 people. 2016, 3 people. 2017, 2. 2018, 1, 2, 3, 3. 2019 is, I think you get my point. When I say we're getting to the hump, we're at the hump. We just need to get over it. And this will straighten itself out.
Okay, thank you.
We also, one more point. We also have to look out for the unintended consequences. I think you people are familiar with that. When you change things, you change people's reaction to those things. We've got a system now. Everybody knows it. Everybody understands it. If we go messing it up, it's going to change. People's reactions and views are going to change, and we might end up with a bigger mess than we have right now.
Thank you. And we have a question, Representative Bloom.
So thank you, Mr. Watton. So what is the reaction of the people that are on the waiting list to you as a vice chair of the zone? Do they come to the meetings, and do they keep demanding to be speeded up, or how does that work? How does that happen?
We have a couple who have been very vocal in the past and come to the meetings, and quite frankly, they were frustrated. They didn't get what they wanted, and they refused to participate with us. I don't blame them. You know, it's not a good position for them to be in, but at the same point, you know, they don't come to the meetings, but at the same time, Senator Mirmont is, you know, he's a senator for most of this zone, and he hasn't never been to a meeting either.
I remember that one of the changes that was made, we were talking about changes made to the wait list. This isn't directly to the wait list, but it was that people on the wait list could attend zone meetings. They have the option to do that. My impression was they either didn't or didn't feel they did. I'm not sure.
The meetings are public. They're open to the public. Anybody can come. The chair is very good. He'll recognize everybody. There has been a few on the waiting list who came and participated.
Okay, great. Thank you. Representative Bloom, are you set? Senator Mirmont.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And Mr. Watton, thanks for being here. Can't remember.
Thank you for having me.
I used to go to the meetings, and I was contacted by a bunch of the folks who were on the waiting list and asking for some action. And we had a meeting. I don't remember if you're on the board then, when finally they kept pushing, and I kept saying, this doesn't sound fair. You really should take some action. And they response finally, was an honest, I love the honesty. It was, look, our kids can come in and we don't care about you. You didn't do it when you could have. So too bad for you, and quit bugging us. So they quit bugging you, but they didn't quit bugging me. And some of the folks on the board still keep in regular contact with me because I have several ways of being contacted. So I feel like I hear what's going on the board. I feel like the requests for the zone taking some action weren't just met with, well, we'll try, but it's hard or anything else. And so you just, not you, the board at that time, whoever it was and whoever was brave enough to stand up and just tell them how that particular group of folks that was running it felt is why we're still here every 2 years revisiting it, because we get the pressure from those folks who weren't heard, still don't feel heard, and still don't feel it's fair. If you were in my shoes, what would you do? Ignore those folks too? Just tell them, hey, yes, it's a resource of the state of Maine, but the folks with licenses are all set and so are their kids, so too bad for you. That wouldn't be a good answer, and it'll never be the answer. And so thanks for coming though today.
You're absolutely right. That's your job to represent your constituents, but as I am an elected representative to the zone council, and it's my job to represent, the people who elected me also. We all are. I just like to, everyone on the waiting list either had the opportunity to complete the student program or is old enough to have been eligible to buy one before it became limited entry, and they didn't. They live a living with their life choices, just like all of us are.
And Mr. Wotton, you're saying specific to the list in your zone, that's accurate?
That is accurate for the state.
Okay. Well, I've been contacted by people, for example, who missed the deadline. I mean, it happens, but.
Yep, it happens. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for being here. And next we have, thank you, Patrice McCarron from the Maine Lobster Association. Welcome.
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Senator Mearmont, Representative McCray, members of the committee. Let's look at that camera right. I am here to testify in opposition to LD 391 on behalf of the Maine Lobstermen's Association board and members. My name is Patrice McCarron, and I am the executive director. The magnitude and impact of the challenges facing the Maine lobster fishery is beyond what any of us could have imagined, even just a few years ago. The lobster fishery is facing steep risk reductions to protect right whales, the potential loss of fishing bottom to offshore wind development, and there's no guarantee that we will sustain the historic landings we've had over the past few decades. In the face of so much uncertainty, the MLA urges you not to make changes to the lobster limited entry program. As I will explain in further detail, the lobster industry is likely to undergo significant changes in its management structure by 2025. And addressing the lobster entry program could be part of that conversation. Our most pressing concern with LD 391, is how it would impact the Maine lobster fishery as the new federal regulations to protect right whales are finalized. The lobster fishery is facing a 98% risk reduction, as we've heard about, by 2030. These reductions will be required as a condition for lobster fishing permits to be issued. The first 60% reduction will be implemented this year through modification to the federal whale rules. This will include removing rope from the water by adding more traps to each trawl, weakening the remaining end lines, and may include a large 967 square mile closure in the offshore waters of zone C, D, and E from October to January. And that's just the first phase. The future risk reductions include an additional 60% risk reduction in 2025 and an 87% risk reduction in 2030. We do not believe this level of risk reduction can occur without reinventing the business and operational model for our fishery. If we're not successful in lessening the risk reduction burden on our fishermen, this fishery as we know it will no longer exist. We're struggling to conceive of how the lobster fishery can remain viable with just the additional 60% risk reduction in just a few years. There's just not that much left to give up. under this current operating model. And then the final 87% risk reduction would require the elimination of rope through the adoption of ropeless fishing. Ropeless fishing is not commercially viable for technological, operational, cost, safety, and enforcement reasons, and a fishery-wide implementation would threaten the diversity of our fishery, potentially lead to consolidation and elimination of our owner-operator model, and it will create significant barriers to entry and diminish opportunity for everybody. Those changes are going to have a ripple effect far beyond our lobstermen. So as we're being asked to make these significant sacrifices to reduce our footprint in the fishery, to reduce our potential harm to right whales, we worry, a lot of them, if they're still going to be in this fishery in the next 10 years. We just don't feel like this is the time to implement any policy change that would actually increase effort. MLA has done a lot of work to educate the public, researchers, the scientific community about our state's excellent track record in protecting right whales. Since our major protections were implemented in 2009 and 2014, the lobster fishery in New England wide has decreased its entanglement by 90%. And there's never been a death or serious injury documented in our gear over the last 17 years. Yet we're essentially...
Excuse me, we're at the time limit, but would you just...
Yeah,
continue?
so what I want to say is if the state moves forward and actually enacts policy that's going to increase effort, the perception among the environmental community, among the scientific community, with the judge is going to diminish our credibility in the whale issue. People are not going to believe that we're serious about protecting right whales, and the judge can look at this and he has the ability to close our fishery. I cannot overstate enough, despite the fact that we've reduced our entanglement risk by 90%, we're still facing a near shutdown of our fishery. So anything that we do that is going to be perceived as our leaders and our state not being serious about right whales, it's really, really going to make trying to get through this next round of reductions ever more challenging. So it feels extremely risky.
Excuse me, co-chair, I have to go to another committee, and could someone pick up the timing for our chair, please? And I have to go. Thanks. I'll be back.
Okay. Thank you. Patrice, thank you. Your testimony's posted, correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Thank you. Representative Bloom has a question.
Hi, Ms. McCarron. Thank you so much for being here. I always find your testimony very compelling, and I really appreciate your take on all of this. You're actually hearing from all the lobstermen up and down the coast. I want to know, when you talk about the whale rules, I guess I would like to know solidly what is still at question. What are we still waiting for? May 31st, we got the buy-up. When you talk about the judge, what judgment when? I'm a little confused about the timing here. And is there a chance for things to change, I guess?
So what's at question right now in the courts is the existing biological opinion, which has been in place since 2014. The judge who is hearing the case in DC District Court said National Marine Fisheries Service is in violation of the law, that biological opinion is invalid. He is allowing the fishery to continue to operate while the federal government gets this new biological opinion in place by May 31st. Technically, the federal government should not be permitting the lobster fishery without a valid biological opinion in place. So the judge has been gracious and said he's not going to take emergency action while the feds figure this out. He's not going to do anything on his own. He's going to let the government work itself out. So the new biological opinion puts us on a 10-year time frame to meet the risk reduction required under the law. And for us, under the current calculations, that's 98%. The conservation community is not happy that that's going to take 10 years. So it's uncertain how the court is going to respond when NMFS comes in with the new biological opinion on this 10-year time frame. What's more confusing is that parallel to this is the proposed rule. So the 2021 changes that we're making are coming through under the whale rules. That's the first step of the biological opinion, our first 60% risk reduction. And then we're on schedule for a second 60%, and then the third one an 87%, cumulatively giving us 98%. So the biological opinion is unlikely to change. It is likely to be questioned as not going far enough under the 98% risk reduction. We hope as an association to aggressively go after the scientific basis of that and hopefully avert at a minimum the last round of risk reductions, because we don't think that the data support that. But that's an unwritten chapter. So we don't know what the measures will be for the second 60% risk reduction. We certainly could anticipate that if we're in for the third one, it would be the complete removal of rope from the fishery under the requirement of a ropeless fishing system.
So the problem, when you say talk about the judge, you're still talking about the judge that's doing the buy-up.
So right now our fishery is operating illegally under the old biological opinion. So we're operating under a vacated 2014 biological opinion, which is, that's not allowed under the Endangered Species Act. So the judge has said, National Marine Fisheries Service has been working on this since 2017. They're going to finish the new one by May of 2021. That will replace the one that is invalid. And then the fishery will legally operate under that. The question is, when National Marine Fisheries shows up, is the judge going to believe that they've met what's mandated under the law? Is it going to count? We know the environmental groups will protest that a 10-year time frame is probably not what the law intended. We'll certainly argue that it goes too far based on the science, but it's really an unknown question because the judge needs to weigh, and we don't have the documents specifically to respond to yet. So there's, the judge still has the authority to disallow this fishery to operate. And that is a looming and serious concern for everybody.
Great. Thank you for the clarification. I really appreciate it.
Patrice, just before we move away from that, there was more than one court. Is one decision final?
So there's a second case that was filed in Maine District Court, and that is the DC District Court is essentially looking at the federal waters fishery under a section of the Endangered Species Act. The case filed in Maine District Court is essentially looking at the state waters portion of the fishery under Endangered Species Act. The state case was almost dismissed, but the judge wanted to hold on to it. And they are going to wait to see what comes out of the federal case. And then they're going to come in and do the concluding arguments for the Maine case. So we're hoping, given the track record that we have for our fishery in state waters and the lack of whales, that we won't be required to do anything. But the same case was filed in Massachusetts, and their entire state waters fishery is now closed. All of their lines are already weakened. They have a very, very comprehensive gear marking scheme that's come on. So they have been required through their state court case to take very aggressive measures. And that is because 2/3 of the whale population are in those waters actually right now. So there's always a possibility when it's pending in a court.
Okay, thank you. Representative McDonald.
Thank you. So along this same topic, I'm just trying to get some clarity of the time frame here. So the new biological opinion comes out the end of May, then NIMS releases the proposed rule, and then that goes back before the judge to evaluate whether that proposed rule meets the, can you explain that part?
Yeah.
When does
so
it go back to court?
The judge has explicitly required that the biological opinion be finalized and submitted to the court by May 31st. Implied, but not directly stated in the order, is that the whale rule, the final whale rule, would also be presented to the court by May 31st. That is, of course, step one of the biological opinion. National Marine Fisheries Service has said they cannot finalize the rule by May 31st due to the longevity of the public process, and they anticipate announcing that this summer. And that is one of the looming questions. How is the judge going to feel that National Marine Fisheries Service is not bringing both completed documents to court? Are they going to feel like they didn't do their job and the court needs to step in? Or are they going to feel like that's a reasonable time frame given what they're up against? We don't know. He's given them a lot of latitude. They were originally trying to require this by the beginning of 2021, and he bumped it to May to give them time to complete that. So those are all questions of speculation. The federal service has said the buy-up will be finalized and submitted to the court. That's what their last update said. They were silent on the final rule, but the Northeast office has said that we should expect to see that this summer.
And then a follow-up, please, Chair.
Absolutely.
So when the buy-up comes out and the proposed rule comes out with or without an extension, at that point, the judge will then weigh in on that rule. And I'm trying to get to where the final
Right.
rule exists.
So the judge will begin to weigh in as of May 31st. That's the deadline. We'll see what documents have been submitted. He may or may not ask for comments or arguments from all of the parties in the case. He may just rule on it. Independent of that, the rule is going to be finalized sometime this summer. What we expect is that National Marine Fisheries Service will likely reveal what's in the final rule when they present to the court in May, even though the document's not final. And that's always difficult because they don't have complete control over that process. So they don't know if when it goes to OMB in the president's office, if it could be changed for circumstances beyond their control. So we know for sure the buy-up will be to the court by May 31st. We know for sure that the judge will reconvene that case and move forward in some sort of decision-making process. What that is, we really won't know until it begins to unfold.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I was muted. Representative Hutchins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Patrice.
Good morning.
Will the possible advent of the wind turbines, the experimental ones that they're talking about doing, enter into the judge's decisions? After all, it's taking up a lot of square miles of, or potentially is, I mean, in areas where I assume it would affect whales and things of that nature, or does that not count for some reason? Thanks.
So yeah, one of the hard lessons I learned about court cases is they only care about the original complaint. And the complaint is about the Northeast lobster fishery and lobster rope. So the case doesn't care about what's happening in Canada or what's happening on wind development. The question is very narrow to, does the permitting of the lobster fishery, in addition to everything else that is stressing out right whales and potentially killing them, further jeopardizes the species' ability to survive? So it's a very narrow question and would not be considering windmills or other potential impacts on right whales. It's specific to lobster, specific to our rope.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Representative Bloom.
Thank you. Ms. McCarron, on another subject, in terms of this bill, in terms of getting people off the wait list, is there anything that the industry would need from any new entrants to the lobster fishery that would actually help the industry? In other words, let's say ropeless fishing was viable at this point. Would it make sense to sort of say, well, if you want to get off a waiting list, you have to do X, and I'll just substitute for, even though I know it's not viable at this point, that you have to do ropeless fishing. Is there anything else that one could say to somebody, if you really want to get off, the industry needs lobstermen to X? Is there anything that you can think of that would fall into that?
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't look at it that way, because if you want to be a successful fisherman, you basically need to be operating at the same standard as your peers, or you're just really not going to make it. You need traps, you need rope, you need access. I would look at it, I think, more as Deirdre explained it, that we need to be clear about what we're trying to accomplish. Do we need to have a limited entry program? Because if we do, some people get in and some people don't. And you know what? It might take a really long time. Or do we want to have some sort of controlled entry where, you wait for a certain amount of time and get in? Those are very different standards. And I think that's been confusing for the zone councils, because I do believe, and I've attended all of the meetings, Zone D and Zone G, they've talked about it in good faith, and for reasons that are very important to them, they feel like this 1 to 5 with tags is the right currency because they feel like their zone is very congested and they feel like there's still a need to reduce effort. So if the legislature's goal is something different, you need to be clear about that, so that the zones have a way to meet that. And Chris's point was really important. You know, there are consequences beyond. If everything's 10 years, then we might be having a different problem down the road. So, you know, what is the goal? What are the marching orders to the zone? I would definitely like to see this solved at the zone council level. I think that diversity to reflect those local conditions is important. And, you know, I think in the work session, it sounds like it may be solved. It sounds like, you know, D and G just might work themselves through in the next few years on that bubble. And that would be important to know. But be clear, you know, if it's a 3-to-1 that will bump everybody through and the zone still has some control, that would be really important for the zones to understand and take action on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All set, Representative Bloom? Representative Crafts.
Thank you. Would it be possible to invite the council chairs? I'm sorry, Ms. McCarron, this is really for our legal analyst. Could we invite the chairs of those 2 councils to our work session?
Don't you mean 3?
Well,
I'm sorry.
Most about D and G.
D&G with the, is it traps? Does F also have the trap exit entry?
Yeah, not as much, but yeah. I don't see why we can't invite to the work session, you're thinking?
Yeah, it would be good to ask some of these questions directly to the chairs who have had these conversations.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think, I mean, I hear people frustrated about not having a longer time frame to be ready, and we had some snafus with the language not going out. So I think that makes it especially important that a work session is coming. And, you know, we have lots of options. We can, I don't mean to put this in anybody's mind as what we should do, but we could consider carrying over, for example, if we decide that we need to do more on this, because we're hearing some really interesting ideas. And I know there are more ideas out there. And this is what what this work is. Somebody brings an idea and we hear it and we see if we like it as is or we want to make some changes. And that's what we do. It's not for sissies. Okay, we have one more person to testify. Any questions any more for Patrice? I think she's out of the room anyway. Okay, thank you. Next up is Virginia Olson. Welcome.
Thank you.
We can hear you. There you are.
Here I am.
Jenny.
I agree with everything that Patrice just said, so I'm not going to waste your time in reiterating all of the whale information. Also, I think Dustin and Chris did a great job. Each zone is different. We all have different ways we fish, different bottom, different amount of grounds that we fish in each zone. One of the things I thought I would suggest to you is that looking at some of our seniors that fish in each zone, maybe offering like a golden highlighter type of license, because, you know, I know my grandfather was in the nursing home. He still purchased his license every year because it was his identifier. It's who he was. He was a fisherman. He was not out on the water, but it may be a way, you know, maybe offering them a free license. It would take them out of the pool of license holders and may open up a spot for someone new. But I do understand, I feel the pain for these guys that are waiting on the list, but the zone councils have a very few things that they actually can control. They can control the number of traps that are fished in their zones. They can control the entry, what their exit and entry level is, and it's their voting line. So it is these guys that are setting this. So the department needs to charge them with either lessening these exit ratios and entry ratios, but this needs to be directed by the zone councils. I feel this very strongly, so does the rest of our union members. If we start taking away some of the abilities of the zone councils, then you need to leave these as voting lines only, because they're not going to be used for anything else. You're taking away the authority of the zone councils if you remove these sort of decisions from them. And I'm sorry that Senator Marymount left, because I really wanted him specifically to hear this, so I'll make sure I include a copy in my submission. But in '97, there was a case that was heard. It was Daley versus Commissioner of DMR. It was held in the Maine Supreme Court, and it was upheld as a statutory lobster licensing and operating requirement that conferred different standards, and it was based on immediate familial relationships, and it determined that such a family preference was permissible under the Equal Protection Clause of Maine and the US Constitutions. So as far as children being entered into the fishery, such preference is allowable under the Equal Protection Clause, and the US Constitution allows that. So we're not breaking or violating any sort of laws, any sort of mechanism that is in place. We have the ability to do that, and that's perfectly fine. And I think that's all that everyone else has covered anything that's in my testimony.
Thank you. I would just ask the student going right into the fishery, that's not just restricted to fishing families, though. That's
Correct.
Anybody.
Correct.
Yeah.
It is, but.
Yeah, I just didn't want to leave people thinking that others couldn't join, because they can. They just have to do it within how it's determined. Okay, thank you. Representative Bloom.
Thank you. Ms. Olson, your idea, could you repeat your idea of what did you call it? Golden something?
Like a golden highliner. These guys have fished, they fish their whole life, but they identify as a fisherman. They buy their license every year because it's who they are. So it would be, they could still have their license. It could be issued from the state, maybe free of charge, but they wouldn't have tags associated with it. And it may be a way to take them out of that, pool of people that would be on the list to put people forward.
May follow up. So the decision on who would get that license, though.
So you would have to look at your landings. So if they didn't have landings for X number of years, you would realize that they're not fishing. The state has that information already. They get dealer reportings, so they know who has been fishing and who hasn't. I think it could be pretty easily figured out if someone is not fishing. I think Deirdre could answer that pretty easily.
I kind of like this idea. I think it's something that's worth exploring by the committee at some level, because we're so proud of our fishermen. We're so proud of the tradition, and to highlight that highlighter, I think it's a great idea. I think that honors these fishermen who do this. And I've heard this before anecdotally, but I think it would be really nice to know what it really means in terms of numbers. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's a very intriguing idea. I know we've had concerns about if we reduce like latency, we increase effort. So it requires some thought, but I think it's certainly good exploration. And I agree. with you. I think it's an identity. It's important. We need to be respectful.
I do. I just think that it is an absolute terrible time to dump a bunch of new lobster licenses into our fishery right now.
Okay, thank you. Let's ask if we can, Lynn or department, if we can. I don't know if you're able to give specific numbers. And Ginny, I didn't ask you to identify where you're from. You're representing.
I'm sorry. I'm from Stonington. I'm a fisherman in Zone C, and I sit on the Maine Lobstering Union Executive Board.
Are you representing the union?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Thank you. If we could just have something around that, what would an idea like that, X number of years? Is it no landings? What is it? And what would that do to increasing effort? I don't know if that's completely measurable, but if we could get some idea around that. Thank you. Any other questions? Lynn.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to confirm the zones, the chairs from zones D and G, and I'm not sure what the third zone was that you wanted invited.
Well, I'm thinking F.
Okay.
I'm seeing Lydia nod.
All right, thank you.
Ginny, do you have any thoughts on that? Inviting the zone is it president, zone chairman? Yeah.
I think that's great because like I said before, I think that these zone councils only have so much authority in what decisions they can make. And I think that it would be a travesty to see, one of their decisions to be taken away from them.
Yeah. And that's certainly the same issue we heard last session and a concern. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wanted to testify on this? If so, if you'd raise your hand, that's all we have on the list.
I have no one on the list, correct.
Okay, thank you. I see none. All right. From the committee, any other requests for information for the work session from Lynn or from the department? And seeing none. Oh, Lydia, Representative Bloom.
Well, after hearing about the timeline of the whale rules and the BIOP and all of that, I feel like we're going to have to be very careful moving forward is all I'm going to say at this point. I think, having and maybe making sure that we have complete clarity as a committee on the timeline, on what it means in between times, what the judge is thinking, what potential actions. I think all of the things that were raised today are important related to that. So I just want to make sure that I'm sure the commissioner will be here and can give us a further update. I think we've got to keep on top of it as a committee going forward, no matter what we're doing, and especially related to this issue.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and as Patrice and Ginny said, we won't have final answers, but we can get where we are now. Representative McDonald, did you have your hand up?
I did, and I'll even phrase it as a question, playing Jeopardy rules, even though the public testimony is no longer happening. My question is to Lydia Bloom. I would support a carryover. Would you support a carryover, Representative Bloom?
Yes, I think I would. I would not support this bill at this point, but listen, that's a conversation for next week, I think.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah, I guess that's my question. Are you comfortable discussing, Representative McDonald? I think we need to have the work session, invite the chairs, hash around these ideas, and then decide if what we want to do. Carry over is an option. Are you okay with that?
Well, I mean, so I am concerned about the short timing on this bill. I mean, people are very busy right now. The council chairs are busy right now. It's a very busy time for the fishing season, and there wasn't a lot of opportunity for the industry to discuss this. So
Mhm.
I would actually be in favor of moving into work session with making a motion to carry it over. And that would give everybody involved a lot more time to think on this issue and possible solutions to bring to us next year.
Okay, do we have a quorum? We do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So are you making a motion, Representative McDonald?
I am, and I don't know if I can make that as the same motion or separately. Because I would make, if I could do it together, I would make a motion to move directly into work session and then make a motion to carry this bill over.
Okay, so motion to go into work session. Do we have a second? Second from Representative Hepler.
I'd like to have a discussion.
Yep, we're just getting, we have to. You want to discuss whether to go into work session?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I mean, I like the idea of having the work session next week. That's what we had said we were going to do. I definitely have, Zone G is a major player in this. I think that there's going to be an opportunity, even though we did only have a short period of time, and I probably would support a carryover. I do think that we should do this in a work session next week. I would really appeal to my colleagues that there may be some more information that could help propel us forward into the next session, instead of, because what's going to happen if we table this now, then we're just going to forget about it. And I think that there's some momentum and some really good information that is coming out right now. So I would just like to wait to the for the session, for the work session for next week to continue what Representative McDonald seems to be going down. So that's my opinion right now.
Okay. Representative McDonald, are you moved?
I'm just trying to be conscious of people's time. And so I'm, instead of having the department come back with information next week and having the zone council chairs expected to come next week, and we haven't actually heard from anybody today who is on the waiting list. So I think that's somebody important to have at the work session. And I think expecting all those people to be here by next week is pretty, that's short timing. We're talking 4 or 5 days. And so I would rather move forward. I'm amenable to making the same motion next week if need be, but it's
Right.
still going to be the same results. Only we're going to have to drag a bunch of people in here first before we discuss it next year.
Well, they don't have to come.
Well, they don't have to come, but I want them to come. So I want them to come next year and have plenty of time to
Right.
think about what they want to say.
Right.
Representative Bloom?
Yeah, the thing is, they will come, whether they come next week or they come next year, if we carry it over, they will come. I just think that there's more information and there's some momentum for some more information because we're meeting next week anyway. Why not just wait and see what else comes up between now and then? And I'm pretty sure we're not going to have all the information, but we're still going to get some more. And I would just like to do that. And if you would allow that, if the committee would allow that, I would appreciate that. And then, but I certainly am on the same level, same plane as Representative McDonald on this, except I do want to wait until next week. That's all.
Okay. Representative Hepler?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I agree with Representative McDonald. I had been, with the schedule going back and forth, I had been trying to get a hold of somebody that I know on the wait list. It is really short notice. I guess my concern would be, we have the work session next week and we vote to carry it over. We can maybe get more, hear from some of the people on the waiting list at some future time, maybe not next week, but if we, assuming we carry it over.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's a question anybody can answer.
Well, we didn't end up voting on whether to go into work session. So why don't we do that? Linda, do you want to, we could do hands, we could do roll call. You want to call the roll?
I'm happy to, if that's what you'd like.
Okay.
All righty. I don't believe Senator Miramont is with us. He's away. So starting with you, Representative McCray,
Yes.
Senator Maxman,
Yes.
Senator Rosen,
Yes.
Representative Alley,
Yes.
Representative Falkingham is not here. Representative Bloom,
No.
Representative Hepler,
Yes.
Representative McDonald,
Yes.
Representative Crafts,
Yes.
Representative Hutchins,
No.
Representative Stanley,
No.
and I don't believe Representative Thorne is here either. So we have 7 in favor and 3 opposed.
Okay. So we have majority voting to go into work session. And we've already discussed a little bit. Representative Hepler, yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Isn't our rules, it has to be unanimous to go into a work session right after the public hearing?
I don't know the answer to that. Lynn, do you know?
I do not know the answer to that, Madam Chair.
Well, it's not unanimous, that's true.
I can make a call and find out if you wish.
Yeah, would you? It's always been unanimous. Just while we're waiting, I do take Representative Bloom's point that we have some momentum here. I think an alternative, if we talk next week, is not to invite the councils yet, to keep talking among ourselves. A lot of ideas have come up. The department's going to be here. They can give us some answers. We can toss some more ideas around and don't have to make a decision.
I agree. I think that we do have some ideas. There's a lot of things bubbling up, and I think that I would like to continue thinking about this as we go forward till next week. I mean, it has gotten me talking to people and trying to figure some things out. So I would just like a little more time to let that happen.
Okay, thanks. Linda, you have an answer?
Well, no, but I was advised that the answer would come from OPLA. So if maybe Lynn can.
So yes, no, OPLA does not know the rules of procedure, and we do not provide advice on the rules of procedure. So that is incorrect. The parliamentarians are, if they aren't in LIO, then that would be from the clerk, from the House, or the Speaker's office.
So can we check with the Speaker's office? Linda, can you do that? Thank you. Okay.
And I'll also, while she does the Speaker's office, I'll check the House and see who gets an answer first.
Okay. Representative McDonald.
I just had a procedural question. So when are we supposed to have bills voted out by? What is the deadline?
We've asked for an extension to allow us to meet next week, and we can ask for another one, but really next week is the end. So we wouldn't go beyond next Tuesday anyway.
Thank you.
So we could hum the Jeopardy theme. Representative Hepler, is your hand up again, or is it the same hand? Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Chair. I seem to recall that each committee votes on its rules of procedure. And maybe we should just wait for answers, but
yeah, I'm not remembering that this was one of those.
Okay. All right.
Representative Hutchins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If we can't wait until the end of May because of timing, and the judge's decisions will be along at that time, that would help, his decision would help make more decisions. So help make a decision easier, I mean. So putting it off is probably going to be the right thing to do. It's just a matter of, when we put it off to, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think it is the issue. This is the issue that we deal with, and it's perennial. It happens, and so if there's anything that we should end our day, our week on, it's this issue, and we should talk about it as much as we can at this point. That's what I would like to do. That's what I would like to do. It's just I just want to continue to have the conversation until we don't until we carry it over, I guess.
Okay.
Just because and I don't know, does everyone not want to talk about this anymore? I mean, is that why I mean, I just want to get through the end and get through some of the beginnings of this. I really don't want to leave it as is. I want to leave it with some record that we are discussing various options.
Okay, Representative McDonald?
I guess my thoughts on that is that we're going to end up in the same place next week. I mean, we're still going to make the same motion to carry it over. It's still going to be the same discussion that we don't have enough information, that we need to know the results of the whale rules. That's not going to happen before next Tuesday or Thursday. I mean, we're having that discussion now. So we're still going to be in the same place with this next week and carry it over pending more information. I don't know if, making some kind of, we could draft a letter that this is, our intent, that we're pending additional information based on the outcome of the ruling. I'm not sure what else we're going to get between now and next Tuesday that we don't already have.
Well, my thought was the marinating that Representative Buckingham mentioned, that people are going to be thinking and might have more to share with each other. But I think I see Lynn nodding. We're getting maybe an answer. Lynn, do you have an answer for us?
Well, I talked to the clerk, Rob, and he said he thinks he knows the answer, but he's going down the hall to talk to Derek, who Linda might be talking to on the phone, and they will call back. Someone will know very soon. And now you've got me intrigued, and I know we're on live mic, but you have to wait for the answer.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's reassuring that they don't have it at their fingertips either.
Well,
parliamentarians. Representative Bloom?
Set of procedures, let's just talk about some of these ideas. So some of the ideas that we're chomping around on is that as Deirdre Gilbert said, we can't be saying that it takes 10 years to get a license, because that's essentially what this does, and still have the zone councils and having a limited entry system. I think the two are really at odds. So I think the path that I think we need to go down is the zone council, is the ratios with the zone councils. I don't believe that, but having this, but back to what Senator Miramont said, that we continually get pressure from these people who are on the wait list, who don't get a hearing in their zone councils. And so there's got to be a little bit of pressure put on the zone councils to be a little more receptive to the people who want to get into the fishery, and to make it a little more fair with their ratios. So I think that there's a lot there. What my point is that I think we also may be creating that pressure right now with this discussion and this potential bill, that it may be a good time to go to the zone councils and say, if you guys don't do something, we're going to have to, because of the pressures that we have. But I firmly believe that the real answer to this problem is going to be in the zone councils. And I think that's where we need to focus if we want to maintain the fishery as we know it.
I see Senator Miramont's back. Can I fill you in on where we are? Have you been listening?
I have not. I just came back from criminal justice. Thank you.
Well, we had a motion to go into work session with the intent to put a carryover vote out. And we didn't have a unanimous vote to go into work session. So we're waiting to find out if we need a unanimous vote to go into work session. So we're checking with the parliamentarians, and we don't know yet. There quite a bit of discussion around continuing the discussion next week around a lot of the ideas that have come up and getting more information. But we also know that the decisions around Wales, the BIOP and Wales is not going to be before us while we're still in committee. So we won't have that information regardless of anything we talk about. So there's, I think, let me know, correct me, people, if I'm not presenting this well, but some people feel like we should continue the discussion while the iron's hot, knowing we'll most likely carry it over because we're not going to have the information we need. And others say, let's save people time and just go to carryover right now. So that's where we are. Why don't we don't have an answer yet. We have a public work session. I don't want to table. I would rather take a break for 5 minutes while we wait for an answer and then come back. So let's do that. And just remember you're on mic. So would you mute yourself while we're on a break? And we'll hopefully have an answer in just a couple minutes. And if we don't, we'll figure out what to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, our chief of staff doesn't think we need unanimous. I didn't either, but I don't, that's.
I just checked with Linda, who hadn't heard back yet, but you had heard back from your parliamentarian.
Yep.
Okay. Let's see.
So we're in work session then.
Well, I also realized I didn't close the public hearing, so we're going to have to do that first.
So I missed what happened. I was taking advantage of, nothing happened yet.
Also, could you remind me of the vote and where you were, co-chair?
I'm talking about whether we were going into a work session. We voted 7-3, 7 yes to 3 no.
And who were the three?
Representative Stanley, Representative McDonald, Representative Hutchins.
Thank you.
No.
No.
Representative Bloom, Representative Hutchins, Representative Stanley.
Oh, right. Okay.
Thank you.
So let's see, we have most people back. Let's officially close the public hearing on LD 391. And we have heard back through Senator Mearmont that we don't require a unanimous vote to go into work session. And the vote was majority to go into work session. So what's the will of the committee? Representative McDonald.
So if we are in work session, I would like to make a motion to please carry over this bill.
I would like to second that.
Okay. So we have a motion, Representative McDonald, seconded by Representative Bloom, to carry over LD 391 to next year of the legislative session. We need to get permission to do that, so we'll make that request. And we have the ability to carry over is based on your percentage of the bills that you get. So we have the ability to carry one over. So if we get permission, this could be the one if we vote for it. Representative Hutchins?
My question is to, if we do carry it over, are we sending a message to all the different zones that their votes really aren't going to matter until next year again? Are we better off just to kill the bill and somebody bring it back again next year? We gave the zones the right to govern themselves as much as possible, and we really need to stand with that and recognize that they know their zones. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Mearmont?
Oh, thank you, Representative Co-Chair. Yeah, we gave them the right to manage their zones, but that's best as possible. And we also heard from the department that they have no ability to have the zones change, only the legislature does. So I wouldn't want to let go of this for anything after having the response I did from the particular zone I represent. So I think that's the point of why it keeps coming up. It felt like there was something being done, it would be different. So for that reason, I support, carrying it over. Certainly not killing it, but I'll support carrying it over with the hope that the zone finally gets it, but my hopes are slim that way too.
Okay, Representative McDonald?
Thank you, Chair. So to Representative Hutchins and Representative Mearmont's points, I respect the zone's authority for self-management, but again, that authority was given to them by the legislature. So I would, I'm willing to keep having this conversation. and see where this goes, with knowing that with the whale rules, this could all be a moot point next year. There may be no entry mandated from the federal government. We don't know yet. And so it sounds like some of the people that testified before us today have some creative and interesting ideas. Maybe this isn't the way to go, but this is a perennial question that comes up every single session. There may be, I think it's going to be highly influenced by whale rules. So before we make any decision, I'd really like to know the outcome of those decisions.
Yeah, and I would add too that I agree with that. And to Senator Mearmont's point, we heard from several people that the legislature hasn't been clear to the zones. I'm not in favor of taking away their authority. I know they're concerned that what we do would take away their authority. I think we need to be careful about that. But we've heard from more than one person that we haven't been clear. And this could be an opportunity to be clear. We just don't know what that would look like. So that's why I think some really interesting ideas came up today, things we hadn't thought of that we should maybe think about. Representative McDonald?
To that point, I think that Representative Crafts had a really excellent idea, which is to invite the chairs, and I would expand that to every zone. And I would also make the suggestion to DMR that they put this item on the agenda for discussion with all the zones before it comes up next year. Because it would be excellent if this discussion ended up being led by the zone councils themselves.
So you're suggesting make that invitation, but make it for when we take it up next
year.
If we agree to carry it over.
Yeah, this is a very short timeline right now. I don't want to bring people in next week and then have, well, we've already gone to work sessions, so that's a moot point at this point. But yes, I think this is a topic that requires a lot of thought and discussion, and it's going to take time. And we certainly need to know the outcome from NOAA first.
Yeah. Senator Mearmont.
Thank you again. Madam Chair, yes, I know the whale rules certainly have the potential of creating fairness and dropping this, because if it shuts things off, then it's fair. Nobody gets in. And I don't want that. I don't want there not to be a flow of new young people with new ideas who have a chance to get a college degree and still be able to flow through, because we made that possible, because we understood the value of having advanced degrees to understand climate change and all the things that are affecting fishing that may have some of these folks able to make the industry last longer because of this and being a part of the voices. So I've never wanted that. I was absolutely wanted to work with the zone councils until they just said they won't. So if they hear a little different and decide that they will, great. That's the only thing. The issue is fairness now. And so great. And I didn't hear all the ideas because I was in 2 other committees, but I can't wait to hear them. Just trying to solve a problem, because I represent all the people in my community, not just some.
Exactly. And I think we heard different, there's, as the zones who were here said, they are different. And not every, we heard from people from different zones saying we need direction. One speaking not for the zone, but as an individual said, I personally would like to see a change, but so there's lots that's out there and that we can talk about. Representative Bloom.
Yes, thank you. I think I really think that we're on the right path here, but I don't want to leave this conversation without writing down, because it'll be a long time between now and the next time we hear it. I wanted to urge our analysts to really do the thorough analyzing of the bill, of the the testimony, make sure that we have some of those ideas already listed so we have a place to start, and we haven't forgotten about what we heard today. That's all.
Right.
I would urge us to make sure we leave this off with those ideas written down.
Right. Agreed. Representative Hepler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just going to use my this prop. These are all my notes that I've taken, and I don't intend to lose them. So
yeah, I have 3 or 4 pages too, but yeah, I know you were on the phone, Lynn, but Representative Bloom was making the point that we want to make sure we document all that we heard so that we will be able to take it up if we decide to carry over.
May I interject, Madam
Sure.
Chair? So I just had finished a phone call with the clerk, and according to the rules of this committee, you are not allowed to go into a work session that you have not noticed. If you were to notice it this very minute, you could continue this conversation later today. But according to the rules of this committee, you can't vote at all to go into a work session right after a public hearing, though I think you may have done it in the past. So I'm just sharing what the rules say you're supposed to do. I know you're well along on your discussion. So I have, I will say that this has just been a week. It was noticed for a work session today, and then the notice was updated and it was taken off. Yeah, so 391 is going to be a number to remember. I don't know how you want to proceed. I will answer any questions you may have.
And I would just point out that the reason it was taken off is because there was no surety that it would go to a work session, so we didn't want to really give that.
We've gone to work
Did you get any
session
of
right
that?
after.
Did you get any of that? Sorry. Okay.
We've gone to work session right after public hearings.
Right. And
All the
we're
time.
taking it off of the notice. It was because we have done that over and over. And since we weren't sure, we didn't want people to think, oh, we know we're going to go right into work session.
Right.
But we have the possibility without it being up there. So it'd be good if we could get advice when we're talking about things like that right away, so as we're moving forward. And so did we properly leave the public hearing is the first question. We're properly out of it.
Yeah.
So now we can discuss, it is later, or we can make the motion and go into work session later because it is later. Later is the definition of, like, as soon as you take a pause for breath, it's later in the legislature. I do know that. So
Can I interrupt you, Mr. Chair?
One sec, I'm almost done. So if the analyst knows how we go into work session now in the posture we're in, I want to know it so we can do it, please. And then we go. And I'm sorry, the chair is still Representative McCrate. That was a little bookkeeping matter here that needed to be adjusted. So Representative McCrate, thank you.
Representative Hutchins.
Yes, I think in the past, or at least a couple of times when we've gone into work session, hasn't actually been directly because I think at one point it was talked about we ought to wait 15 minutes before we go into work session. Can I have the motion that we dispense with the 15 minutes and then go into it? And I think we've actually gone through that procedure to go into work session. It seems to me I remember that a couple of times.
Representative McDonald.
So I don't know if you need me to make a motion that we wait 30 seconds to go into work session, if that would be helpful at this point, and we can just go ahead and issue that notice. That is not why I have my hand up, but I'm happy to make that motion if it would be helpful. I will have you weigh in on that, Madam Chair. Do we need that?
I don't think we need that. I think we've done this. We did it yesterday in Veterans and Legal Affairs, right after a work session. It was right after a public hearing. It was clear we were going to go into work session. We went into work session. So I say we keep going.
All right. So if we're going to keep going, my question to the committee is for my idea to notify the zone councils and have them be present at the work session and also add this topic to the agenda for the zone councils. Do we want to make that formal request of the Department of Marine Resources in writing, or would we like to invite Deirdre Gilbert back in to confirm that they will in fact do that? And is the committee in support of that?
Well, let's invite Deirdre if she would like to respond. She can decline, but she can respond. Welcome.
Thank you.
Representative McCray. So Representative McDonald, I just wanted to clarify. So you're just saying bring this topic back to the zone councils. We can certainly do that without a letter from the committee. I do want to just reiterate, I think for that topic to be, or for that conversation to be productive, the more information that we can bring from the committee regarding what would be a satisfactory solution, that will make those conversations far more constructive. So that is the guidance I would say the department would really like to get from the committee to be able to bring that conversation to the zone council.
Representative McDonald.
And a follow-up, thank you. So at this point, I think it's fair to say that telling the zone councils, the Marine Resources Committee has intentions to act. It may not be unanimous, but we certainly are, because I know that we have brought this to the zone councils many times. And so what we are looking for are their ideas and for them to take a formal position and present it to us, because the zone council chairs can do that, to what suggestions their zone has. So whether that is a 10-year list or 3-to-1 or doing nothing, but they don't have to have a singular position, but we do expect them to come back with some ideas, similar to what we've actually done with conservation equivalencies for whale rules, if you will, where we ask the zones to come forward with ideas. I think that it is time for them to come forward with ideas for this topic.
Could I just follow up? What I'm looking for though is the objective, like ideas to achieve a particular objective. And the conservation equivalencies is a great example where you have a target and then you say, how are we going to get there? And that's, I think, what has been missing from this conversation is the target itself, beyond a sense that lists are long and people wait a long time. If we could get beyond that to specific objectives, I think that would be helpful.
I mean, it sounds like 10 years is the benchmark that we're looking at. I wish Representative Falkingham was here, but to, for example, move the waiting lists along more rapidly, that nobody is on a 10-year list, 10-year delay. That does not take more than 10 years to enter the fishery through the waiting list. There we go. I spit it out.
Senator Mearmont.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I heard the department's concern about that. It makes sense too. And it would be a horrible thing to make it so that then we had a largely increased list. I'm thinking about that, but the point would be that they have an entry and exit ratio that is fair to all the people of the state of Maine, however that goes. If they're going to be allowing anyone in, then it has to be everyone, but they can have their qualifications. If you've gone through the student program or the apprenticeship program, you've completed it, then you get to come in on some ratio. That would have the appearance of fairness. It has to have fairness to everyone who wants to be in it. Now, if you create that and there's fairness, and the list is long, then you're not going to have some group that's being excluded for no reason. They're demanding fairness. You'll know what the list is, you'll know how it moves, and it will be fair to everyone. Will it be great to know that it's 10 years long? No, but you can make choices from that. These are the things. So, is that clear? Fairness?
Well, I'm hearing two separate things. One is about the existing waiting lists and how long people wait on them. I understand that your concern is the fairness between students and waiting list people, but it is a law that allows individuals to get in off of the waiting list to get in without going on to the waiting list. So that is provided for in law. So if that's something that you want to address, you would have to address that in the law.
And we will. We're giving a little more time, and we will. That doesn't preclude the zone, or does it? You're telling us that why are we asking the zone councils to do something that they can't do? They can't start letting I'm not saying this is the ratio, but let's say it's one student, then we let in one from the waiting list. They can't do that?
Well, what I am hearing is that some people's concerns are the length of time that people spend on the waiting list, and they are not concerned about the student entry. I do understand that is your concern, that be comparable. There is a provision of law that would allow zone councils to put students on waiting lists in accordance with their other waiting lists, so they would maintain 2 concurrent waiting lists. Zones have not chosen to exercise that. If what you want is for them to do that, then rather than telling the zones, we're going to require you to exercise an authority you have chosen not to exercise, I would say it is within the committee's purview to decide if that's something that you want to have happen. But it doesn't make sense to me to direct the zones to exercise an authority they have not exercised, because that's not giving them an authority. That's just giving them a directive.
Then a follow-up, please. And also, and you're pointing out correctly that Representative Fockingham has a different priority here for a very good reason as well. He's on a bill in another committee, so he can't be here. But carrying this over allows us time to also digest what has been said today that I'm hearing my co-chair say were some good ideas, me to hear what those good ideas are that would, and we could figure out how to solve the couple different issues that a couple of us have, and including Representative Bloom, who says, geez, most of these are in G, a lot of them are in D. Okay, what's fair for bringing them in too? But an overarching one for me is managing properly the resource of the people of Maine for the people of Maine. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just, again, my only reason for questioning is to try to get clarity around what we are asking the zone councils to do. I certainly don't want to be in a position where we go to the zones, ask them to do something, and then that is still not what the committee is looking for. So I'm just trying to get as much clarity around that as we can. Thank you.
Representative Bloom, are you?
Yeah, I think the clarity issue is very important. And to me, the clarity is we've got problems with this 10-year problem in D, F, and G. Those are that, and just to be clear, it's just that the other zones don't have this problem. D, F, and G have this problem, and we need to talk to them directly about it, because this is where we're getting pushback from. What is the best for the zone? How can they help bring, manage their zone and reduce this waiting time? I mean, that's really the question. But I think we need to be very specific that we're talking about D, F, and G. That's what this is. That's what we're talking about. So anyway, I have to run. I'm sorry. I got to go to another thing. But I got a Coastal and Climate Action Caucus at noon. I wanted to just say that I am in favor of carrying this over, and if we wanted to do a letter or something, we could still continue to talk about that next week. I think we should review a letter before it goes out. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, can you hang in? You can't hang in. Her caucus is starting right now. Representative McDonald.
So I don't think a formal letter is necessary to talk to the zones. I think we've made that clear. We've had that discussion with the zones multiple times. And then in respect for everybody's time, I would move the question to take a vote on carryover. Because we can certainly keep talking about letters and things at the next work session that we're going to have after we carry it over.
Second, let's vote.
Yeah, we've got, this is exactly why we need to have more conversation. So let's take the vote. The motion, we've had a motion to carry over, have we?
Yes.
I've lost track.
Yes,
McDonald, and I can second it.
Actually, Representative Bloom seconded it.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Wonderful.
All right. Would you call the roll, Linda?
Yes, I will. Senator Miramont.
Yay.
Representative McCray.
Yes.
Senator Maxman.
Yes.
Senator Rosen.
Yes.
Representative Alley.
Yes.
Representative Bloom.
Yes.
Representative Hepler.
Yes.
Representative McDonald.
Yes.
Representative Crafts.
Yes.
Representative Hutchins.
Yes.
Representative Stanley.
Yes.
So that is 11 in favor, 2 absent. To
Thank
carry
you.
over.
And Lydia can get to her caucus. Phew. somebody, who was it said we won't forget LD 391? We still haven't forgotten LD 28. This is part 2. Lynn, a question for you. As we carry this over, does the title stay an act to amend the laws regarding marine resources, or do we change it to anything? We haven't taken a bill, so.
The title would stay the same.
Okay. Okay, and we'll do much better at noticing next time. Part of it is it's the end and things go crunched at the end, but we'll be talking about this at the beginning. Do we need to do anything to make sure that it's taken up early, or is that just up to us as we make the calendar?
That is up to the committee as you make the calendar, yes.
Okay. All right, we did it. And Senator Mearmont, part 2 is the work session. Can I hand it back to you, or are you leaving again?
No, I don't think we don't have anything else to vote on at ASMFC, so I'm back. I'm still listening.
And do we want a break, or do we want to keep going?
Well, I think we
No
can
break.
move along, but well, who wants a break? Raise your hand. 5 minutes?
Yes?
Yes.
Here, yes.
Okay. It's now 12:03. We'll come back at 12:10. Thank you. Bye. Shut off your video and mic.
Representative Hutchins?
Yes.
I think you were thinking of nomination hearings, where you can't vote unless you wait. You have to agree to vote right away or wait. at
I
least.
think, yes, I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. I'd forgotten about that part of it. Yeah.
It took me a while to get there, but I think that's, I think that's it.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's get rid of ASMFC. We'll give you a report back when we find out the results of all that. Okay, you've already read the public hearing information earlier.
This is a work session, though.
And so I won't do that, but I will do the work session because you pointed that out. All my screens have now gone blank. Yeah, you're still there. Lucky me. Okay. And it, Representative Hutchins, you have your hand up. Is that current? No. Okay. And so everybody's introduced themselves. We do have a quorum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, we do. No. Yes, that's live. Great. And we're going to go into a work session now. The work session is for the committee to discuss the facts of the public hearing and make a decision. And one of those decisions not available to us is probably a carryover. Because we get 10 or 11 bills, we get one based on the 10% rule. So we're taking that away. But the first thing is that at the public hearing, Representative Williams was not available, and I'm glad you're out of the hospital, unless that's what MDI hospital looks like now. But I think that it didn't build it with radiators, so we're good there. Welcome back, and we wanted you to be able to read your testimony or say it or however you're going to do it this morning, and introduce yourself first as well. So this opens the hearing, the work session on, that's what the other thing I was trying to get to was the bill number, which 1211, I believe is correct. So go ahead, Representative Williams.
Thank you, Senator Miramont and Representative McCray and honorable members of the Marine Resources Committee. I am Lynn Williams. I represent House District 135, which includes the towns of Bar Harbor, where I live, Lemoyne, and Mount Desert. Thank you for leave to just say a few comments today. I'll keep it short. Due to my hospitalization at MDI Hospital, which is better decorated than my house. So I am currently and have been for 4 years the chair of the Harbor Committee of Bar Harbor. So I really understand development on and in Frenchman Bay. The genesis of the resolve that is before you today, LD 1211, came not out of anything having to do with aquaculture. I have to clarify that because that's what people are all jumping over now. And the genesis was 3 years ago, my own town, and I was very critical of this, pushed our legislators to pass a bill to establish a Bar Harbor Port Authority, which would give authority to a partially elected, partially appointed board for any development in the waters off of Bar Harbor. There was huge opposition to this. It did pass the legislature, but was ultimately vetoed by then Governor LePage. Also at that time, concurrently, there was a proposal for a 1,000-foot pier into Frenchman Bay to accommodate the cruise ship industry. There was huge opposition to this, and citizens brought a referendum to the ballot, and it was defeated. Currently now, someone asked me at a harbor committee meeting, the last one, well, you know, what about these aquaculture businesses? They're all over the place. How many are there? And I said, quite honestly, I can't tell you how many there are because I have heard 0 complaints about them. We have seaweed harvesting, we have mussels, we have oysters and so on in Frenchman Bay and Eastern Bay, which is the northern part of the bay. We are threatened with, from Acadia Aquaculture, a very, very large finfish farm and 66 acres, which just in general, to my mind, is an inappropriate level of industrial development. For example, when Nordic Farms down in Waldo County proposed to raise 72 million pounds of salmon per year on land, they had to have their location rezoned industrial before they could submit its permit application to the DEP. But while our bays are not zoned, town borders do exist in the water. For example, the Porcupine Islands, if you've been to Bar Harbor, they're those little islands with the trees, now property of the Acadia. They are very close to Bar Harbor. You know, you can almost walk out to them. People do row out to them, but they are part of Goldsboro, Representative Falkingham's district, which is the whole other side of the bay, because the line, the in-water boundary line between Goldsboro and Bar Harbor is very close to Bar Harbor. So they have a say on the proposed very large finfish farm, and we have none. So this is why we are submitting this resolve. It's not legislation, it's only asking for a study group so we can look at how we can create multi-municipal communication, conflict resolution, and cooperation. This is a positive thing. This is not an anti-anything. It's pro cooperation among the towns around the bay. Essentially, small towns like Sorrento, Hancock, and Lemoyne, which I represent, never have any input into anything that goes on in the bay. Let me just conclude here. In conclusion, early on in the development of this proposal, I studied the Saco River and the Allagash River commissions, which facilitate communication and coordination between towns along those rivers regarding proposed development. This is what we're seeking, not just for Frenchman Bay, but a model for any bay or water body along the coast who would seek to establish such a process, and I'll again say, for communication, cooperation, and conflict resolution. Thank you for your time, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Representative Williams. And that is enlightening. It's too bad the order that it came in, because a lot of people were concerned about aquaculture, and it really didn't relate to what they were doing. But is this salmon farm, is it onshore or offshore? Land-based or in the bay?
Oh, the current large one that I referenced, it's
Yes.
Offshore.
Okay.
It's closest to Bar Harbor off of Hog Island. I don't know if you've ever sailed the bay or whatever.
Yep.
Closest to Bar Harbor, distance-wise, but it's technically Goldsboro.
Yep. Okay.
And as you probably know, Representative Falkingham is one of my co-sponsors on this bill. He does not support it, but the town leadership of Goldsboro does support it. So things are complicated, not with the small aquaculture businesses, even the middle-sized ones. We've never had any issues. But when things that of an industrial size are now being proposed, I think it's time that we look at ways that we can all work together on this.
Yeah, thank you. And Hog has that nice rock crag. You can bring your bow of your boat right up into it. And it's deep to who knows how deep. My charter cruise always started with that. People used to like that part. Anyway, Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Chair. Representative Lynn Williams, I'm glad to see you're out of the hospital and thank you for being
Thank
here
you.
today. Can you please repeat for us though, because I made this same mistake last week and ended up misprinted in the media. What is the name of the company that is proposing a finfish farm?
I believe it's, and I just typed up my stuff this morning. I believe it's Acadia. No, oh, that's the, apologies to Fiona. Oh my God.
I did the same thing. So I wanted an opportunity for you to say that on the record. It is in fact American Aqua Farms.
American, yes.
And then
I'm gonna have to do a little penance coming up.
and then a follow-up. My actual question for you, if I can, Chair, is could you tell us a little bit more about the original intention of the bill and the issues that were happening in Bar Harbor? What I'm looking for is, it sounds like there's really a sort of a specific issue there. And this is a very large process, this bill that you have proposed. And I was wondering if maybe there were like really specific statutes or a portion of existing statute that would address those really sort of localized and specific problems, which was the reason that you brought this bill forward.
It's ironic in a way, Representative McDonald, because the major issues had to do with my own town. And as I opened this with, and I don't know if you had tuned back in yet, but I opened it with the fact that 3.5 years ago or thereabouts, Bar Harbor pushed and passed out of the legislature to do a port authority. And there was a huge amount of opposition, but it didn't go to the voters. It went to the legislature. And our two Bryans, both friends of mine, as I used to call them, did push it through. And then Governor LePage vetoed it. So it did not, in fact, happen. I felt personally it was a power grab on the part of some folks in town. This all had to do with our town, though. This was not anything in the Bay or any other towns impacting Bar Harbor. At the same time, the town of Bar Harbor, the town council, proposed a 1,000-foot pier into Frenchman Bay to accommodate the cruise ships. And luckily the citizens collected signatures, that went on the ballot, and that went down. So these were the two things that were a genesis of me, and I wasn't elected yet, beginning to talk to people, basically coastal activists, about how can we're totally segmented. How can we put something together where we have a model to communicate and work together on these, to review these proposals, to look at the pros and cons for each of the various towns, the little towns that I mentioned before, Hancock, Sorrento, Lemoyne, they never have any way to participate with anything going on. Bar Harbor is the big gun, in the room. And Goldsboro next, but the smaller towns, they have no say. And, the water can't be zoned. The water flows from shoreline to shoreline. And I think it behooves us to begin communicating and talking about what we want our bay to become.
So what you're seeking is for municipalities to have more authority to weigh in on submerged lands leasing decisions?
We have, I do know, my harbor committee, we weigh in on submerged lands. These are not in submerged land lease. These are further out from the shore. And this is a resolve. So what I am, and it's only to create a study group. And we're more than willing to amend categories that's on it, or add or delete, whatever. All we want is for the study committee to put together some sort of process where we can create and I don't have that in my head, or else we would have done a bill. I want to hear from people in all the towns surrounding Frenchman Bay about what, I want them to go to the study group and give their information or their opinion about what they think would work best. Like for Lemoyne to go and say, one of the people I've worked with this on is the select board chair of Lemoyne and the harbor master. And she said, we never know what's going on. We have no idea what's going on in Frenchman Bay. And so the idea of this committee would be to bring various entities and people and experts in and just say, what do you think would be the best way for us to have a system of communication and discussion and make sure everyone's included in the process. I know that sounds touchy-feely, but that's me.
Thank you for your explanation, Representative. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I see a 25-member committee. So it's got a lot of inclusion and some exclusion, which because you weren't talking about aquaculture at that point, it was really left out. I see why now. And any other questions, Representative McCreight?
I didn't have a question for the sponsor, though. Thank you for getting out of the hospital. But I'm hoping we're going to hear the bill analysis if people are finished with questions for the sponsor, because it's been a little while. It was
Absolutely.
2 days ago.
All right. And Representative Hepler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Representative Williams, it's nice to see you. So I missed a little bit of the conversation, the response to Representative McDonald's question, and I apologize for that. But as somebody who's been in a town official for 10 years, I'm wondering, is this something that could be done by just getting representatives of the community together to develop questions and sort of brainstorm some solutions and then bring this to the state if need be?
I felt, and the people I was working with also felt that yes, that's a possibility to do an informal sort of process, but our vision was to have an entity such as a study commission that various municipal representatives could testify before, department people could testify before, experts and so on, because we envision this as something usable for any bay in the state. We focused on Frenchman's Bay because we're here, but we got a lot of interest from Casco Bay, and they have completely different issues than we do. But that's why Senator Carney, for example, is my lead Senate sponsor, because Casco Bay is very interested in this process being set up so that they too can cooperate and communicate and avoid conflict in their uses. Their uses are very different than our uses, but they're in a similar situation to what we are. So, I'm Harbor Committee Chair, and there's only one Harbor Committee on Frenchman Bay, so I guess I'm the chair, at least of my harbor, and I could do this, but I don't know. I would much rather, as would the folks I worked with on this, would much rather see it as a more inclusive process that could be utilized by whatever comes out of the study group, that could be utilized by other bays.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And so, Lynn, could you do your analysis? Representative Williams, were you able to listen to the public hearing when you were in the hospital or not?
I did, yes.
Okay, so it won't be a surprise what she's about to say.
Yeah,
I was just going to tell you that.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. Thank you. All right, Lynn, please.
Thank you, Mr.
I
Chair.
think, Senator Miramont, I think Representative Valley had his hand up.
Nope.
Nope, okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this bill is a resolve to create a study group, and Representative Williams has now described to us her intention for this bill. So there were I'm going to share my screen. There were quite a number of people who testified. Before I get to that, I just wanted to go through the specifics of this bill. It does create a 25-member study group. It has 2 senators and 3 representatives from coastal legislative districts. It has representatives of marine harvesters. It has representatives from municipalities located on Casco, Penobscot, Blue Hill, Frenchman, and Cobscook Bay. There's a representative from DMR, representatives from marine industries such as shipbuilders, tour boat operators, and marinas. A group of representatives from coastal water conservation organizations, a couple representatives from coastal research organizations, and a representative from Acadia National Park. And I'm going to skip the duties for now and go back to it, because having heard Representative Williams' description of the intent of this bill, I have a little bit more to add. So there were several proponents, there were several opponents. DMR was an opponent. There were some neither for nor against, and there was quite a bit of testimony that was provided, that was written testimony. I think that there was quite a bit of focus, as we all recall, on the aquaculture industry, and it sounds now from what Representative Williams is speaking about that the bill had a different intent. So there was quite a bit, as I said, about the aquaculture. There was some discussion about home rule authority and that impact. The one thing for consideration before I go back to the scope of this study group is that it wasn't clear to me who the report that this group is going to create, who that report was going to. So if the committee moves forward with this, you might want to think about that. I did set out what the duties of this study group are, but having listened to Representative Williams, I actually would like to screen share something different, which is the language from the actual bill, because I think that the duties that are in the bill, it's not clear from them, except for a couple, that the focus of this study group is going to produce the type of product that Representative Williams has discussed. I think that item number 4, duty number 4, and I don't know if you can see this, duty number 4 and duty number 7 seem to capture best what Representative Williams said the intent is, which is to, duty number 4 is reviewing various models for local representation, participation, and empowerment in regional planning. And it talks about watchdog authority, which is a little bit of a separate kind of it could be considered a separate model. And then number 7 in this list of duties talks about creating regional units functioning in individual bays that are composed of municipally elected representatives of the surrounding communities. So at first blush, when I read all of these duties, I would not have naturally picked up the focus that Representative Williams has described. I think it's in there. I think if the committee wants to move forward with this bill to accomplish what Representative Williams says that her intent is, you might want to tweak some of this language in what the duties are to make it a little clearer. And if you're going to go forward with that, there were some specific comments about some of these duties. There was one criticism about, I think it was DMR, about the process of looking at failures. And then the comment was, if you identify the failures, then do research on how to fix it. So as opposed to spending time researching where the failures were, spend time with known failures and having the group research solutions. So there were some specific comments on the tasks or the duties that you may want to take into consideration. But I think the main point is, I think it would be good if the committee could clarify a little bit better what the purpose of the study group is if the committee moves forward with this as a bill. So I think that's about the sense of my analysis.
Thank you, Lynn. And Representative McDonald.
Thank you. So a quick question for the analysts, and then I'm going to propose a motion. And this work is expected to be wrapped up by when in the duties?
December 1st of 2021 is when the report is due, so that there can be legislation in the second regular.
Thank you. So while I respect the intentions of the sponsor of this legislation, I am going to make a motion ought not to pass, and I'm happy to have further discussion about that.
We have a motion ought not to pass on LD 1211. Is there a second?
Seconded.
And
Seconded.
Seconded. Did you see who, Linda? I didn't either. Sorry. You did. Good. Oh, there you go. Thank you.
Representative Hutchins,
Just
yes.
jumping all around today. Okay. Any discussion, Representative McCray?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I hear the intention, but we had masses of testimony with raising a lot of concerns about the way it was written. I appreciate Representative McDonald's point about it getting clearer. I wondered, well, I'm wondering if we want to hear from the department. But I just think it's not, it was creating a tremendous amount of concern among the aquaculture community, as Representative Williamson noted, and I continue to be concerned about that. So I guess I would like to hear from the department, if that's okay.
Of course, it's okay. And I'll put that out too. I love that you cleared up the intent, and it made a much better picture. I actually defended that intent because when you talked to me about it originally, it does leave a lot of work for the committee to do to flesh out something that you're much more familiar with and couldn't quite come together before you brought it to us. So just a comment, depending on how this goes, because this may not be one of those times where we have the time to figure it all out. But let's hear what the department says too. Director Gilbert.
Thank you, Senator Marymount, Representative McCray, members of the committee. I am Deirdre Gilbert, Director of State Marine Policy at DMR. I have spoken with Representative Williams and got a little bit better sense of where this came from prior to the hearing. And I do appreciate that the aquaculture industry may not have been the impetus for the legislation, but then in all conversations where this bill has been discussed, folks go on to talk about the American Aquafarms proposal. So it does seem to be still the intent to include aquaculture in the work that this group would do in terms of changing potentially how input is provided to the department. I did want to clarify, it sounded like Representative Williams was indicating that other municipalities have no input into the leasing process. And I just wanted to make sure folks understood there is a opportunity for municipalities to get input into the leasing process. Municipalities can apply to be interveners in the adjudicatory process. So there is mechanisms there for that to happen. It's not that there's no role for municipalities around a bay. I think I just wanted to speak a little bit. It sounded like Representative Hepler was kind of characterizing this more as a desire for local communities to be able to communicate with each other around these issues more than communicating to the state. So I think there are other mechanisms that could happen through. But we are concerned just about the breadth of the work here. I understand it's coming from a particular part of the state, but that other parts of the state may have different issues they want to address. And it just quickly becomes very kind of overwhelming for us to try to figure out how one would work through those things. I think the last thing I would say in reviewing the testimony that you heard the other day, when I read the Island Institute testimony, actually, I feel like that articulated what I was trying to say, which is basically, it really needs to address, or in my opinion, an effort like this should identify a systemic problem that needs to be addressed. It sounds more like there have been some situations where people were concerned that they would be unhappy with the outcome. It doesn't sound like those things came to pass, but there really is no kind of concrete description of the problem we're trying to solve still from our perspective. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Director. Okay, there's Representative Hutchins. You have a question.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. For a better term, shotgun approach like this that looks and doesn't have a lot of focus reminds me, many years ago, there was a bill that passed in the legislature that gave people, and I think this is what it would devolve into perhaps, it gave anyone that had a view of an aquaculture site, it gave them stakeholder status. And then Governor Jock McKernan and I decided it would be a good one for him to veto, and he did with a pocket veto. A few years later, the same bill came back again, and Governor King did away with it for me under my suggestion. Only he just sent it back to committee and told him to bury it. So I think this is what a commission like this would devolve into, is the kind of thing where a good friend of mine who has huge deep pockets would help people sue to get rid of aquaculture. And I say a friend of mine, he was a friend of mine, he still is a friend of mine. And since that time, he now is a supporter of aquaculture. But if these things had worked early on in the aquaculture process, we wouldn't have an aquaculture process today, I don't think. So I think this process here, even though it's not specifically targeted, would devolve into this same type of thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. And Representative Hepler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a real short story and then an idea, suggestion. One is I had a bill that was similar, but honestly a lot vaguer than what Representative Williams had. And I had a conversation with Commissioner Gilbert, and the concern was, we had this conversation that all these people would get together. It was about the waters of the state. I don't need to go into the gory details. And she very reasonably said, you can get all these people together, and what would we be doing? And so as a result of that, with the help of a constituent, I withdrew the bill. So that's my short story about this, and sort of a cautionary tale. The idea I had, and this is something that Deirdre brought up also, is the Island Institute, and wonder if that might be a mechanism for gathering these folks together.
Well, can I respond?
Of course.
Senator? The problem with the Island Institute is that they're not in our region. You know, they're mid-coast, really. And we're out there, you know, we're down east. And we do have entities that are very active and that we've talked to, but they're very specific to certain things. You know, those who are trying to reintroduce the wild salmon, the Salmon Federation, groups like that. And there may be some groups like that that we can talk to, and that is a good suggestion, and I'll put it on the list to look at. So thank you, Representative Hepler.
Representative McCray.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Representative Hepler's making me think of two things. One is a very similar situation I had with a bill, except I didn't withdraw it and wish I had. The other is mentioning the Island Institute, it makes me think about Sea Grant, because they're not specific to a part. No.
I can stop you there. Sea Grant did our research on this.
Oh, okay.
We've been working with them. They're wonderful.
Yeah,
Yes.
great. Okay. Well, I just stay concerned about the intent being good, but the consequences being not, and just such overwhelming testimony about that. So I remain concerned.
Well, someone has her hand up.
Representative McDonald.
I would just like to reiterate with my colleagues, Representative McCray and Representative Hepler, that I think many of us can share our experiences from putting in a study bill that we wish that we had withdrawn, or maybe, I guess, Representative Hepler was wise enough to withdraw ahead of time before we painfully watched it go down in flames. So I'll add my misery to that.
Yes, yes. All right, so we have a motion on the floor. And I don't see any other questions. Is that okay? Representative Williams.
Yes. My lady friends have convinced me to withdraw this
And
proposal.
it's a little late here, I think.
Is it?
What's the process? I don't know that you can at this point.
Okay.
Hold on. But we'll take care of that for you in just a second, I
I
think.
know you will.
We'll just check. Lynn, any process for withdrawing at this late a stage?
No, you have to withdraw before a public hearing. So that ship has
Sorry.
sailed.
Thank you very much. Okay,
I'm
we
an
have a
attorney.
motion.
I can see the handwriting on the wall.
Good. We have a motion, and I'm ready for a vote. Linda, if you are.
I am. Senator Miramont, how do you vote?
Yeah, I vote yes.
Senator McCray?
Senator? Great.
I'm sorry. It's been a long morning. Representative McCray?
Yes.
Senator Maxman?
Yes.
Senator Rosen?
Yes.
Representative Alley?
Yes.
Representative Bloom? Has she left? She's
They're all
left.
done.
Representative Hepler?
Yes.
Representative McDonald?
Yes.
Representative Crafts? She's no longer here either. Representative Hutchins?
Yes.
Representative Stanley? She is here. She's not on screen. There she is.
Yes.
Okay, and I don't see Representative Thorne, so that's 9 in favor, 3 absent. Nope, that's off. 9 in favor.
Did you ever call Representative Fockingham? I didn't hear him.
Oh, he's the other one. Is he here?
Nope.
No, I didn't call him because I knew he wasn't here.
In education.
So we have absent Representative Fockingham, Bloom, Crafts, and Thorne. That's the 4th one. Okay, thank you. So 4 absent.
That's the count then. The motion ought not to pass, prevails 9-4. With our apologies and thanks for bringing this, Representative Williams. And that closes the work session on LD 1211. That also concludes our advertised business. Thanks for being with us today, Representative Williams. Glad you're recovering. Good luck. See you next Thursday.
Yep.
The rest of the committee, if you want to any announcements, anything Representative McCray does? Lynn, if you have anything? Okay, Representative McCray.
We just got word that our session day is postponed, so we won't be meeting on the 13th after all. There's a letter that everybody has in their email. And just a reminder that Monday, our senator has a bill in IF&W that it's a joint hearing, so we're invited. I believe is it at 9 or at 10? 10 o'clock? Okay. And then we meet on Tuesday with the department reporting back on a couple reports.
Well, no break for anybody else, but at least Linda gets the room to herself for one day tomorrow, right, Linda?
That's right.
Okay.
If I may, Mr. Chair, this, the hearing on Monday is different. This is officially jointly referred, so you all will have the ability to vote on this bill, which you didn't have on the other two.
Well, thank you for that reminder. Also, I have put in the amendment that was always meant to be the bill. It's just that revisers and I had been going back and forth, and unfortunately it came out at a tough time, and they were holding firm to, even though they had missed it twice, you only get 2 chances. Made no sense to me. So it's ready for you. It's very simple, and you'll get it. Maybe you have. I haven't been checking emails. So sorry we won't get together next Thursday, but we'll see you on Monday. And thanks for everything today. Great discussion. Have a great weekend.
Oh, Allison?
I was just gonna, thank you. I was just gonna say that Linda LaCroix pointed out to me that I only get, Representative Alley and I only get 1 vote. No,
that's right.
Not true? Wait, what?
No, that's not true. They are on 2 separate committees, so they get to vote. That's my understanding.
Okay.
All right, I'll be in touch with both of you. Okay. Have a great weekend now.